Zaki, and please join me to give her a big welcoming. So please go ahead, Dr. Zaki, you can start right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Ibrahim. Thank you for the organizing committee to actually invite me. I hope today's lecture and session will be fruitful and beneficial for everybody. I would like to start my presentation with in 2017, me and my team, we won this distinguished activity award in awareness about sleep and sleep disorders in the community. And the reason why I'm so proud of this prize is from 2017 until today, we were the only Arab team to win this prize in the history of the World Sleep Society. So I just wanted to give a very hint about that. Today, our main goal will be mainly we need to be a little bit more closer to what we mean by sleep and what do you mean by circadian rhythms and how are these circadian rhythms controlled inside our body. What is the role of melatonin in sleep and in circadian rhythms, and what is the advantages and disadvantages of using melatonin as an external supplement to help the person sleep or to affect his circadian rhythms in a way or another. And then we will have a very quick glance about the sleep patterns of Hajj and how we can, the sleep advices that we can give to people at Hajj to maintain a good sleep hygiene. So first of all, what do we mean by sleep? Sleep is a state of rest in which the human being is disconnected from all of the external environmental senses. It is not a state of complete cessation of body functions. No, body functions will still remain, but they will be in a different format, in a way that there is a detoxification of the body and a refreshment and repacking of the one's energy. So on the next day, when we wake up, our body is ready for a next active day after a good night rest and sleep. In humans, sleep is mainly divided into two stages: the non-rapid eye movement sleep and the rapid eye movement sleep, or what we call REM. The non-rapid eye movement sleep is divided into three substages: N1, N2, and N3. N3 is mainly what we call deep sleep. So the more percentage, or if you get the normal percentage of N3 during your sleep, you will wake up refreshed. The more your N3 is less than normal, or it becomes fewer in amount, even if you sleep 8 or 9 hours, you will wake up non-refreshed and you will wake up saying, no, I did not sleep well last night. And this is because your deep sleep percentage was very low. How do we know the percentages of each sleep stage in the human being? Of course, if a person is not complaining, we do not need to do that. But a person who is complaining of sleep problems, insomnia, for example, or inability to sleep deeply, or maybe he's walking or talking during sleeping or getting really annoying nightmares, so he has a type of sleep problem, we will need to do what we call a polysomnographic study or a sleep laboratory for him. And this sleep lab, as you see in the picture here, the person will sleep in the lab, in the sleep lab, and some certain wires will be applied on his body and on his head in certain locations in order to be able to measure certain physiological functions and certain electrical brain activity during sleep. And these all data will go to a software program of the polysomnographic device, after which it will analyze the percentages of each sleep stage and whether this person is actually getting sufficient sleep or no, whether he's having, for example, sleep apnea, whether he's having some electrical or abnormal electrical activity of his brain during sleep. All of this will show to us, and sleep physicians are experts in reading these types of graphs and are able to analyze it well in order to diagnose a sleep problem if there is any sleep complaint from the person. Again, this is just an illustration about the electric activity of the brain during sleep and how we can classify each sleep stage. And it mainly depends upon the type of waves we can detect. So if we detect alpha waves, the patient means he's still awake or drowsy and he did not go into sleep yet. If we detect theta waves, it means he's in N1. If there is sleep spindles, it means he is in N2. And if we have delta waves, it means that he is getting into stage N3 or deep sleep. And this is the sleep stage, which is very important to be in normal percentage in order to give the person a restful night. For classifying sleep disorders, actually sleep medicine is nowadays a separate branch of medicine, and it has its own classification system, and it has its own doctors as well, like sleep physicians all over the world will be specialized in diagnosing and managing various sleep disorders. So the American Academy of Sleep Medicine is actually responsible about updating the international classification of sleep disorders, maybe annually or every 2 years. Right now, the international classification of sleep disorders contain around 88 listed and classified sleep problems. And each of these classified sleep problem has its own diagnostic criteria and has its own guidelines for diagnosis and management. Now we want to go to understand what do we mean by circadian rhythms. Actually, the sleep-wake cycle is one of our body circadian rhythms. So I am pointing towards body functions and biological functions which circulate over the day and run in cycles, and the cycle length is only 24 hours. So the sleep-wake cycle is one of the biological circadian rhythms. We have a lot of other circadian rhythms in the body that I will show in the next slides, but you just need to understand that this disruption, if you disrupt this normal cycle, this normal light-dark cycle, if you disrupt this normal sleep-wake cycle, like, for example, in nurses or people who are shift workers, who have to stay awake all night and they sleep during daytime, so their sleep-wake cycle is reversed. This is a type of circadian rhythm disruption. So, in the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, they classified circadian rhythm disorders into 6 disorders that are showing in front of you on the screen right now. And each of these disorders has its own classification and diagnostic criteria. But why am I mentioning them here? Because later on, we will understand the role of melatonin in fixing these circadian rhythm disorders. So just put in mind that yes, they have other management plans and other management lines for each of these disorders, but also melatonin has a role in fixing all of these circadian rhythm disorders in a way or another. What other types of circadian rhythms that can happen in the body? So, for example, your body temperature will vary between the day and night. Your blood pressure will vary between day and night. Your cortisol secretion will vary between day and night. Your heart rate will vary, breathing rate will vary. So all of these biological functions have cycles. These cycles will change over the 24-hour, and it is tied to the light and dark, sleep and wake, and thus we call them circadian rhythms. So, how do you think our body, a human body, will tell the time? So, how am my body gonna know that right now it is noon or it is 12 noon, and I need to do the function or the biological function which is needed to be done at 12 noon? How is my body going to know, for example, that we are at nighttime now and I need to secrete melatonin, and I need to suppress the secretion of growth hormone, and I need to suppress my blood pressure to be a little bit lower? How does the body know the time? Our body knows the time because we have a clock inside our brain. It is called the central body clock, and this body clock is located into the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. This nucleus function is affected by a couple of things, which we call them stimuli, and the main stimulus for this body clock is the light. And as you see in the picture right now, when there is light, sunlight, the light will go through the retinohypothalamic tract, through our eye, to the retina, to the hypothalamus, to stimulate the suprachiasmatic nucleus and tell it, okay, right now we are at daytime and this is sunlight coming to you. While at dark, there will be no sun and it will be dark. So the retinohypothalamic tract will not be stimulated, and the signals going to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the internal body clock, will tell it, okay, there is no light right now, so we are dark, so please start giving a signal to the other organs which need to work at the dark or need to work in a certain way at nighttime. Okay. So, does melatonin have a role in this? Yes, melatonin, we call it a chronobiotic, or it is the hormone which conveys the messages inside the suprachiasmatic nucleus or inside the internal body clock. It will be secreted at that time from the pineal gland to stimulate the suprachiasmatic nucleus about the time. Melatonin has two types of receptors: central receptors and peripheral receptors. There are receptors for melatonin located in all of our body organs: liver, kidney, heart, intestine, muscles. So, how does the peripheral organs know the time? Or how does the internal body clock tell the time to the other organs? It is through melatonin receptors. Melatonin, once it gets the signal that there is light, and now we are during the daytime, melatonin receptors in the peripheral body organs will also be stimulated to work as they are in the daytime or work as if they are in the nighttime, depending upon what time exactly we are in right now and which type of messages they are receiving and which time or clock is the body clock telling them at what time we are right now. So, source of secretion is from the pineal gland, and during daytime, during light, melatonin secretion is suppressed, while during dark, melatonin secretion will be stimulated. So here is the pineal gland, the source of melatonin secretion in the body. And it is a very, very small gland located near the hypothalamus of the brain.
Sorry, Dr. Naveen, we're just going to play the first poll if you don't mind.
Sure, but I already said the answer.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Let us know when to play the second and the third poll, and then we'll play them again at the
Sure.
end. Thank you.
I think you should play number 1 and 2 now.
Okay. Done. Please feel free to go on.
Okay. Okay, so these are the melatonin receptors that I was talking about. So we have central melatonin receptors and we have peripheral melatonin receptors in the other body organs. And this is how the peripheral body organs will know the time from the central melatonin receptors in the brain. Melatonin, because I know we have a lot of maybe pharmacists or chemists with us, melatonin structure, chemical structure is just like most of the hormones, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, okay? It is synthesized from the amino acid called tryptophan. And tryptophan will eventually be transferred into serotonin. And then from serotonin, we will have the melatonin formed by the N-acetyl serotonin enzyme. So if we want to increase the amount of melatonin in the body, what should we do? We should search for sources of tryptophan amino acids, and we should search for sources which will increase serotonin in the body. So as on the right side, I've written some of the supplements which will affect the formation of each of these factors. And at the end result, we can increase or modify the level of melatonin in our body using folic acid, B12, zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6, okay? And all of these types of food sources that are in front of you, they all have these components, and at the end, when we eat them, they will result in either increase of tryptophan, serotonin, and eventually the level of melatonin in our body will increase naturally by some foods that we can consume. So what about the manufactured melatonin? So the melatonin which is synthesized by pharmaceutical companies, is it safe? Does it have the same effect of our natural melatonin? Well, actually, yes. And I will talk about this in the coming slides. You need to understand that any device which emits blue light will suppress the secretion of melatonin. It will suppress the secretion of the natural melatonin in our body. So phones, computers, televisions, screens, Apple Watch, all of these devices emit blue light. And this blue light was found to suppress melatonin secretion in the body. And that's why it can affect a lot of body functions, not only our sleep, as we will understand in the coming slides. Melatonin secretion starts very early in a child who is maybe 3 or 4 months of age. And before that age, we do not have melatonin. And that's why early born babies, their sleep rhythm is not like normal. It is irregular. They sleep, they wake, they sleep, they wake. The sleep duration is very short. Maybe they annoy their parents at night and they wake them up. because not yet melatonin has not yet been fully developed in their bodies. And then maybe at the age of 4 or 5 months, then they start getting a melatonin, and then they start getting an internal body clock, and their rhythm starts to normalize to some extent. We have also to understand that old age people, geriatric, our fathers, mothers, grandparents, level of melatonin will decrease naturally because of degeneration of the neuron nucleus, and the cells which secrete melatonin will be less in number. And that's in geriatric, and that's why also the sleep rhythm of elderly people is quite light sleep and short in duration. Melatonin, whether it's naturally produced or exogenously produced, is metabolized mainly in the liver, and the remaining part of it will be excreted in the urine. And what is the importance of this? The importance of this, that if we are going to take an exogenous source for melatonin, a synthesized source of melatonin, we need to pay attention to the liver function and the kidney function of the patient who's taking them. And in general, it is safe, but it is better also to be monitor these functions just to make sure that the body can actually excrete and metabolize the exogenous melatonin in the proper way, which does not cause toxicity to the person. So, as I said before, if it's dark, melatonin is active, but if it's light, melatonin is inactive. So, the more regular sleep rhythm you have, and the more natural sleep-wake cycle you have, so you sleep during nighttime in the proper timings, you wake up during daytime in the proper timings, you are exposed to sunlight for proper time. And I advise everyone of the audience that you have to expose yourself at least 20 minutes to sunlight between 7 to 9 a.m. daily in order to reset your body clock and maintain a normal function of the circadian rhythms in your body. Melatonin is generally safe, but if it causes any side effects, it will be like tolerable side effects. Some nausea, dizziness, drowsiness, some abdominal cramps. Okay, and all of these in general are tolerable and they are not serious. As I said before, depending upon the type of circadian rhythm sleep disorder you have, the dose and timing of melatonin will differ. So, for people who have jet lags means it happens to people who travel across time zones. So for a person who is, for example, in Saudi Arabia or Emirates, and he's going to the United States, and this time difference will cause his internal body clock some disruption. To avoid this, this is called jet lag, and to avoid this, we can take melatonin in the dose between 0.5 milligram to 5 milligrams before bedtime to avoid the negative impacts of jet lag. If you're a shift worker, like you're a nurse or you're a doctor, and your times of shifts keeps changing, so this week your morning, next week your evening, maybe the week after your night shift, and so on, your shift keeps moving or changing, you can use melatonin in the dose of around 2 milligram at the end of your shift. So even if it's a daytime shift, you will take it at the end of your shift to reset your body clock to normal again. And for people who have insomnia or inability to sleep properly, they can take from 1 to 2 milligrams of melatonin, maybe 1 to 2 hours before their bedtime, in order to benefit from melatonin. You have to understand that melatonin is not only chronobiotic, like it's not only a hormone which is responsible about sleep. It has other functions in the body as well. And as I told you, there are melatonin receptors in all of the peripheral body organs. But what are they doing there besides telling the time? Besides telling the time, melatonin can act as an antioxidant. Melatonin can also improve the immune system. Melatonin can help in sleep disturbances and immunity of cancer patients. Melatonin can suppress nightmares. Melatonin can make premenstrual or menstrual symptoms also less. And there's a lot of other functions which, if I want to allocate a lecture for melatonin functions in the body, it will be a separate lecture. But just put in mind that we can use melatonin also, or its indications can be widespread to other indications rather than only sleeping. So some studies actually, as I mentioned earlier, they study the timing and the dosing of melatonin and when do we actually use it and how much we use it in different problems or disorders. And I advise you that you can go back to this paper and read it, and you will have more ideas about when to use melatonin and what is the preferred dose in different sleep problems. Okay, so melatonin secretions and praying and religious practice and spiritual practices, especially for people who might wake up a little bit early to pray al-Fajr or pray Tahajjud. I found this study also which mentions that people who wake up early to pray or pray Tahajjud have better melatonin levels than non-prayers. And of course, this is a proof about how much religiosity and spirituality can have impact on our health, as proved before. So, in general, it is preferred to use melatonin in low doses. So you can start from 0.5 milligram and reach up to 5 milligram. But the lower you go, the better, the safer, and the better impact you will get. Okay? The higher doses you use, you are approaching more side effects and less safety, and more impact maybe on the liver or kidney by passage of time. Also, it is advised not to use melatonin on a continuously for longer than 2 months unless it is under medical supervision. So yes, melatonin is an over-the-counter drug, as we mentioned earlier, even in the title of the lecture. It's over the counter. You can buy it without prescription. Some people consider it as a dietary supplement, as I mentioned earlier, because the secretion of it can be increased by a lot of food resources. But if you're going to use it for a long time, then at that time you need medical supervision just to avoid toxicity or avoid unfavorable side effects. Can we use it in kids? Yes, we can use it in kids above 5 years of age. And actually, being a psychiatrist, this is something like I don't have, like, let's say, evidence-based studies about it, but this is something from my clinical practice, that autistic kids usually have disturbance in their circadian rhythm. and their sleep work cycle is very disrupted and irregular. And we do use melatonin in very low doses in kids, autistic kids who are above 5 years of age, of course. And it's actually very beneficial in like regulating their sleep cycle. And the parent also, you will decrease the load on the parent who will have to stay awake all night with an autistic child, taking care of him or her because of his inability to sleep at night properly. Melatonin really helps, and you can use it in kids. That's from my clinical experience. It's a tolerable safety profile as long as you, as I said, you are in low doses. Higher doses, you are approaching toxicity and side effects. The European Food Safety Authority actually gave a recommendation that melatonin is safe in the doses of 1 milligram. And if you're going to use it to help people sleep, you can use it because it will reduce the time. It will not cause longer or deeper sleep duration, but it will help you fall asleep easy. And from the circadian rhythm perspective, it will reset your body clock to normal. Okay, so Hajj, which is the main core topic of this conference or symposium. Of course, people during Hajj will be really spiritual. They don't want to sleep. They want to stay awake. They want to pray. They want to visit the holy places. They want to go here, go there. They think that if they sleep, this will affect their religious practice during that time. We just want to give a very small recommendation that the better sleep they have, this will also help in maintaining their health, especially in the hot weather or the temperature. They will pursue the Hajj practice. We also advise some people, if it's possible, that they bring their own pillow, they bring their own blanket with them, because this will make them feel at home when they sleep. A lot of people will sleep in tents, even the tent is 5-star, but again, it's not like sleeping at your home. So if you spend a week or 10 days unable to sleep, I'm quite sure a lot of problems, health problems will arise. So this is just a small tip about sleep hygiene during Hajj. And as I said earlier, they can use even masks or earplugs during nighttime, because, as I said, a lot of people will stay awake and they will not sleep, and they will make noise, and the environment will not be quiet and calm as expected. So this might make some people unable to sleep properly, even for 3-4 hours. So they can use earplugs or masks during their sleep. And this will help them block out distractions in crowded areas or places, and thus they will get enough of the sleep needed for them during this very holy religious time. In general, sleep is a hygiene. It's just like a habit that we develop. So if you develop a habit of sleeping while the light is on, you need to change it. If you're developing a habit that you're eating and reading on your bed, you need to change it. If you're developing a habit that you use electronics and you expose yourself all the day to blue light daily and on frequent basis, you will know that you're disrupting not only your circadian rhythm, but a lot of other biological functions. And I don't want to scare you, but it can even cause cancer in some people. And there's a lot of researches about exposure to blue light and cancer. So people, yes, a warm bath, some music, darkening or dimming the lights, making your environment comfortable, having curtains in your bedroom, not eating heavy meals right before bed, switching off your screen early, and like detoxifying your body from the exposure to blue light, maintaining a sleep routine, sleep at the proper routine daily, and wake up at a proper routine daily. All of this will make your habit of sleeping easy and more healthy. And I'm not sure if I have finished before the time, but this is all I have to say today. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Zaki, for your thoughtful presentation on the evolving role of melatonin in clinical practice. Yeah, yes, you did finish early, but we will utilize that time to ask you many questions, since a lot of people is interested knowing a lot about melatonin.
Ready.
Thank you, Professor Zaki. I mean, you outline, every single, evidence, clinically evidence, terminology, and some real facts about melatonin. Melatonin is widely used, and sleeping disturbances are one of the most, bothering thing that we all face in at any time, at many, maybe sometime many days, at certain ages, maybe surrounding with some circumstances. So sleeping is one of the problem, and once you have bad sleep, you will have bad everything, metabolic problems, everything in your life. So let me start with, since most of the questions are related about safety issue, I would start with the first question: is melatonin's safety dose dependent?
Yes, it's dose dependent. The higher dose you use, the less safety profile and the more intolerable side effects you will get. So if you want to benefit without like harming your patients in a way or another, try to use lower doses. But yani clinical recommended dose, you can reach up to 5 or 8 milligram. It's clinically not against clinical recommendation, but the lower dose you use and it's beneficial for the patient, it's better. So you start low and you wait for the effect for some time and see if it's effective, if it's good. There's no need to use the high dose from the beginning. Start low and just wait for the effect to show up, because it will take some time. Because it's not a hypnotic drug, if you use it, you will not see the benefit on the same day of usage. It is a chronobiotic, so it will take 2, 3, 4 days. It's a cumulative effect of use. So you just wait, you start low, you wait, you inform the patient and you educate the patient about the effect, that it's not going to be right away, but this is more safe for you than using a hypnotic with a rapid onset of action, but more troublesome later, okay? And you just wait on the low dose to see its effect. If it's effective, then there is no need to increase the dose.
Okay. Yeah. Also, we're still talking about safety. I mean, this question may be obvious, but I need the audience to hear it from you. Would melatonin be safe in children with autism or not? I'm not sure what you...
As I said, I mentioned this type of information from my clinical practice, and actually there are some studies which are studying the impact of melatonin on autistic kids, and all of the results of these studies is actually positive results. Like, none of the studies listed severe harm or any intolerable side effects to children. Okay, so yes, you can use it. And as I told you, we actually use it in our clinical practice for autistic kids in low doses from 0.5 milligram to 1 milligram. Do not exceed more than that. And it's very effective and it's very safe. And if you're really worried, you can do liver functions every 6 months or something, because it's gonna be like a chronic use or a chronic supplement use for these types of kids. But it is effective. It will not treat autism. It will treat the sleep problems of the autistic kids. There's a big difference.
Okay. So is there any link between melatonin and migraine headaches? Because I got two questions of this one. Is there any?
To be honest, I don't know, but if there is going to be a relationship, it will be in the timing. So if you get the migraine at a certain time of the day, then this time, even of the migraine episode, it is timed by your internal body clock. So melatonin will have a role in the timing, but is it a cause of migraine? Can we use it to treat migraine? This I did not actually encounter any studies talking about this.
Okay. I think I was asked by the organizing committee, they need to show the poll. So we'll just
Sure.
give it, then we'll come back to a number of questions. Very interesting question. I think everybody is enjoying the presentation, including me, of course. So Mr. T,
I'm enjoying also.
Hi, Dr.
I'm
Naveen.
enjoying it.
Hi, Dr. Naveen. So on the left, you will
Hello.
see the question asked at the beginning of the presentation, and on the right, you will see the same question answered towards the end. So if you can just have a quick view.
Okay, so before, on the left is before,
Yes.
and on the right is after. Why
Yeah.
the score has decreased in the correct answer? This is not good. It means that I did not deliver the message properly. What is this?
Let's check the next poll.
45% said the pineal gland before, and then it decreased to 38% after. This is not good.
Second
Let's
poll.
see number 2. Peak time of melatonin secretion. Okay, good. This one, yes, 44 before and 52 after. Then this question, I did a good job. Okay.
And poll number 3.
After that, before was 79 and 82. Not a very big rise, but it's still a rise, so that's good.
Thank you, doctor. I'll let you continue.
Welcome.
Yeah, boss, can I go back to the question, boss?
You
Yeah.
are the real boss, Professor Ibrahim.
He's our boss, so we cannot
Absolutely not. You are my senior.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I have one question here is, what are the key safety consideration for OTC melatonin use during Hajj, particularly in older adults?
Yes, so elderly adults will usually have, usually, they will be on other medications for a lot of other health problems. Let's agree about this. The older you get, you're gonna get hypertension, diabetes, you're gonna get kidney problem, cardiac problems. You'll have a lot of issues that you will be taking, or actually medications for these health issues. So one of the concerns will be drug-drug interaction, okay? And number 2, the liver function and kidney functions in elderly might not be optimum because all of these people who are coming to Hajj, we don't actually know their baseline liver function or kidney function. So maybe we should just be cautious. If they have disturbed liver enzymes, or maybe their kidney is to some extent inefficient in excreting, so maybe we should just be cautious about drug-drug interaction and liver kidney functions in elderly only. Other than that, it's completely safe.
Thank you so much for addressing this issue. Now, I have a very interesting question, and I want you to hear it. How can healthcare professionals differentiate between sleep hygiene issues and clinical insomnia in mass gatherings?
Okay, so to diagnose insomnia as a disease, there's the International Classification of Sleep Disorders that I mentioned in my presentation earlier, has put certain criteria to diagnose insomnia. So in order to diagnose clinical insomnia, you need at least 3 days per week of inability to initiate or maintain sleep for the proper duration. And this 3 days a week for at least 3 months, this problem is happening. Okay, so when you take history from the patient, you need to make sure, is he actually unable to initiate or maintain a proper sleep rhythm for a proper sleep duration for 3 days per week or longer for at least the continuous past 3 months before his visit to you. If he satisfies this criteria, then you can start saying this is insomnia. But maybe today I have exams or tomorrow I have exams, I'm worried, so I don't sleep well until my exams is over. This is not insomnia. Okay, this is actually an anxiety or worry. So it is very important to understand what is the cause of inability to sleep. Okay, even some people with hypertension, diabetes, their vascularity is not normal. So they don't get enough blood supply to the brain, even if they don't have any strokes or anything. But again, their vascular supply to the brain is not in the normal way. So these people will get, to some extent, some inability to sleep. But what is the cause? The cause is their primary medical illness. So what I'm talking about to diagnose insomnia is a primary illness which does not have any external cause. So this person is only unable to sleep 3 days a week for at least 3 months without a cause, without an obvious cause, neither medical nor psychiatric cause. Okay, is it clear now?
Yeah, it is clear. Yeah,
In the International Classification of Sleep Disorder, the older version, they divided insomnia into 2 types, primary insomnia and secondary insomnia. And secondary insomnia was either due to psychiatric illness or medical illness. But in the recent classification, the most recent classification, they abolished or deleted secondary insomnia from the terminology. So they only kept the primary insomnia, which does not have a cause.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I have a question. We all read in certain point of time that an adult person would need 8 hours of sleep to have a good quality of sleep. Now the issue is, I have actually, forgive me if I object on this one. To me, what matters, and I need your comment as an expert. To me, what matters is the quality of the sleep and not the timing of the sleep. In other words, if I sleep 3 hours with a good quality, that would be much better, at least to me, rather than sleeping 8 hours with bad quality of sleep. Can you just elaborate on this? Because some people just always insist that an adult need 8 hours. I don't sleep 8 hours. 3 hours, I would function like 100%. I mean, do I need 8 hours? I cannot sleep 8 hours. So if I sleep 3 hours with a good quality, would that be equal to 8 hours of sleep? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
First of all, I really thank you for this question. It will be very good to illustrate the answer now to people so that they will know some insight about this. First of all, normal pattern, we have what we call average sleepers, we have short sleepers, and we have long sleepers. So this is created by God, an individual variability between people, which means that some people, their sleep will do all of its function to the body, restorative function, resting function, detoxifying functions in only 4 hours. These we call short sleepers. The long sleepers, the sleep will do its function to the body in long term, like they need 10 or 11 hours of sleep in order for the sleep to do its proper function in the body. And then we have the average, which is the 7 or 8 hours of sleep. So I don't want anyone to come and tell me these 4 hours, people who sleep 4 hours, they have insomnia. No, they don't have insomnia. They are very happy with this 4 hours of them. They sleep it. That's how God created them from the beginning. They were created to sleep for short time and be very happy with this duration. And it's not causing them a problem. When is it a problem? If he is accustomed to sleep 8 hours and be rested after 8 hours of sleep, and then suddenly he's sleeping 5 or 4 or 3 hours only. This time we say, yes, this person has insomnia. So, first of all, there is individual variability by God who created us in this variation. Number two, a lot of parameters will identify the quality of your sleep, sir. So it's not only duration. Yes, duration is one of the parameters, but depth, as you said, is also important. But if you're not getting the enough hours, you will also not get the enough percentage of N3 or deep sleep that I mentioned during my lecture. So the percentage of it will not be enough. So it's like, it's a discrepancy. Yes, maybe I wake up next day, I'm refreshed, it's enough for me. This is a subjective feeling of good sleep. But objectively, if we, for example, do sleep study for you, after these 4 hours, maybe the numbers will come to us abnormal. I don't know. So it's not only about the duration, it's about also the percentage of deep sleep we got during night. It's about the quality of the sleep itself. It's about that I wake up next day refreshed. So yes, you can sleep 8 hours and next day you wake up, you're still tired, your body's fatigued, you're lazy, you don't want to go to work. And maybe you sleep 4 hours and you wake up very refreshed and ready to exercise and want to run maybe 2 or 3 miles. So it's not only about the duration, it's the duration, the depth, the quality, and the daytime consequences of the night sleep you got. Are you getting the proper refreshment next day or not? I hope I answered the question.
Well, you saw me, laughing all the time when you answered. In the beginning, you supported me, and I was very happy, because I always keep fighting. I sleep 3 hours, 4 hours. Everybody's calling me a crazy, and now
No, I'm still supporting you. If you get
and now
if you get 4 hours of sleep satisfied and you wake up next day refreshed and well and happy, you're okay. You're fine, no problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, what are the contraindications?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. What are the contraindications of melatonin? Can you just briefly, we still have, 5 more minutes.
Okay, mainly people with liver and kidney injury only. Just be aware of this. People with blood pressure problems, maybe they come next, but the main issue is just try to be very careful if the patient is having liver or kidney problem. Okay, and if he is hypertensive, it is not contraindicated, but use with caution. We can still use it, but with caution. You give and you follow up the patient and you observe the effects.
Now, how does the sleep cycle vary across different age groups?
Okay, so in children, when they are still yet born, as I said earlier, before developing melatonin, they only have rapid eye movement sleep, imagine. And that's why you find the baby laughing or doing whatever while he sleeps, because this is the stage at which we get dreams. So actually, we are born with rapid eye movement sleep only or dream sleep only. The older you get, the normal pattern of sleep will come in. So non-rapid eye movement sleep will take around 75% of the night, and rapid eye movement sleep will take 25% of the night. That's by growing older. When you are very old, like above 50 or 60, geriatric patients, you reverse back to the infanthood again. So non-rapid eye movement sleep starts to become less, and the rapid eye movement becomes more. That's one thing. The other thing also, myelination of the neurons is important, because when there is delayed myelination or no myelination in infants and children, this will also delay development of the internal body clock to function normally. We have what we call chronotypes. Chronotypes are two types. And this is, I will not talk long about it, but I'll just give you an idea. There is people who we call morning people, and there is people which we call evening people. Morning people, you know, these people, they sleep very early at night and they are very active during the daytime, okay? Evening people are the opposite. Evening people, all the daytime, they, you know, they have headaches, they want to smoke, they drink a lot of caffeine, they are not fully functioning during daytime. And then once it's 5, 6 p.m., they start being alert and active, and they start gaining their focus during the evening. And this is also a normal variant or a natural variant. Adolescent, our children in adolescent age, the teens, they are evening people. And if you notice, you want to wake him up to go to school, he doesn't want to wake up in the morning. Okay, but maybe 5, 6 p.m. he's very active. He stays late at night, awake, watching TV or playing video games or whatever until late night. So this is what we call chronotype, morning and evening chronotype, and it will affect the pattern of sleep or sleep cycle also, depending upon which type you are and which age group you are in at the moment.
Yeah, we got two more questions for the time's sake. What is the relationship between magnesium and melatonin?
Okay, so magnesium will be used in, it will help or promote, I think, step 2, which is transforming tryptophan to serotonin. So the enzyme transforming tryptophan to serotonin will use magnesium as a cofactor. But if you, if you don't take magnesium, the process is still going. But it can help to some extent if you have a sleep problem to promote production of serotonin, and then serotonin will be transformed into melatonin.
Yeah, does melatonin affect thyroid hormone?
Growth hormone? No.
Thyroid.
No. Melatonin, the hormone which is connected to melatonin is cortisol, actually. They are opposite each other. So melatonin secretion is suppressed during daytime and it stimulates cortisol. And the opposite, it is secreted during nighttime and then cortisol secretion is suppressed. So they are both opposite and they run together like they are two opposite brothers. Melatonin and cortisol, these are the two hormones connected. But for growth hormone, no. Growth hormone promotion in children until the age of adolescence is promoted during sleep. And that's why when you tell a newly mother, you tell her, the more your child sleep, the more he will grow. This is a true fact, because growth hormone during his sleep, not when he's awake. And it will help the baby to grow in a normal pattern. After the age of adolescence, growth hormone is not secreted during sleep anymore.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Zaki, for addressing all the questions with a big heart, and just explaining in details everything. And I'm thank you again for your.
I still support you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah.
I thank you, sir. I thank the organizer and I thank the audience, and I'm really happy to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And now we are going to move to our next speaker, Hertig. He is an internationally recognized expert in medication safety and the founder of Hertig Healthcare Advising, a former department chair and associate professor at Butler University. Dr. Hertig has contributed to global policy Initiative for Medication Safety and serve on the US FDA Drug Safety Advisory Committee. It's a pleasure to welcome him, and he's going to speak today about one of the most hot topic, actually, and I very happy, and I want to hear a lot about that, which is artificial intelligence in clinical practice. Wow, for healthcare professionals. So please join me to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Jim Hurtig.
Apologies just for interrupting. Dr. John, welcome. I'd just like to know, tell us when to play the polls, the first and the second poll, okay?
Very good, will do.
So we'd like to play them once at the beginning and then another time at the end, and then we'll compare the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that kind introduction. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Perhaps you can confirm that I have my presentation here. Perfect.
We still don't see it, Dr. John. Yeah, now we are okay. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to the hosts and organizers. It's my absolute pleasure to be here to talk certainly about a very hot topic, which is artificial intelligence, and how we can use AI in the future of both healthcare and pharmacy practice. I won't go over this slide in much detail, but these are my various current roles. I've been super pleased to be involved in patient safety, as well as the use of technology to enhance patient safety throughout my career. So we can go ahead and bring up the first set of polls. We can do that now, just as our two pre-questions.
Yep, just one second. While
Very
I do
good.
that, Dr. John, could I ask you to reshare your screen because we can see the black that covers over your Zoom panel. So
Let's
when
see.
you share your screen, if you can just share without optimizing for video sharing, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Optimize for video sharing is unclicked.
Yes, perfect.
So let's go ahead and try this.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Oh, no problem.
And in the meantime, we've already started to share the first poll.
Very good.
Okay, if you can do full screen.
Should be now full screen.
Yes, it's full screen. Again, we see the black dots, but as long as you keep them away from your presentation, it should be fine.
Very good. Yes, I'm moving them. Everything should be away. I don't see any, but I know that others
Yeah.
might be able to. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
I think this is part of the artificial intelligence type of thing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's always technology, isn't it? Yes.
It is. Thank you.
So those pre-questions should be made available now.
Yes, you can go on. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Well, let's start here. There are so many terms with regards to technology, and they're all a little different, but they're all interconnected. So you've probably heard many of these terms, from big data to predictive analytics to deep learning to statistics, cognitive computing, machine learning. It can be a real alphabet soup when it comes to artificial intelligence. And so what I'm hoping to do today is unravel this in a little bit of detail. And I'm not going to overwhelm, because it can be overwhelming, but want to link the practical part of AI with pharmacy and healthcare practice. To do that, let's start with some definitions. And I want to cover three important definitions that are all going to be interlinked as we talk about artificial intelligence. We're going to start with health information technology, then move on to defining big data and data science and how that's related, and then finally pull it all together with artificial intelligence, which encompasses a few different additional definitions, including machine learning as well as deep learning. But let's start with health information technology, or HIT. The term health information technology, or health IT, refers to the variety of different electronic systems that we use increasingly, and then patients also access to store, share, and analyze health information. So when talking about health IT, this includes everything from our EHRs, our electronic health records, our personal health records that many of our patients access through electronic portals, e-prescribing, as well as privacy and security software. It's everything health technology that we access on a daily basis. And we're becoming increasingly familiar with health information technology and, say, CPOE, for example. Now, moving on to data science or big data. Data science and the study of data science encompasses those methods, those algorithms, the systems that extract knowledge and insights from what's called big data. And what is big data? I mean, I think we've probably all heard of what is big data. And big data is defined as data sets that are so large, they're so complex, they contain so much information that our traditional computing methods are incapable of handling that amount of information. So new tools and techniques need to be designed to help translate that big data and that massive data set into actual evidence that we can then use in practice. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as part of our presentation today. And that finally brings us to AI, or artificial intelligence. At its core, artificial intelligence enables computers, machines, robots, technology to mimic the perception, learning, problem solving, and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. So in many ways, what we're doing is enabling these computers to mimic the way humans think. That's why it's artificial. It's mimicking intelligence of humans. In computer science, the term AI refers to any human-like intelligence that is then exhibited by a computer, a robot, or other machine or technology. So we've gone over those key definitions. How are they all linked together, and how did we get to this point in technology when we're talking about it in healthcare? And it goes back to the 1950s when artificial intelligence was first developed. And this artificial intelligence, again, is human intelligence exhibited by machines and can be, for example, anything from our Amazon purchase prediction, those algorithms that say, hey, we bought this item, and so this item may also be of interest to you. We've probably all seen that, or even smart email categorization that puts our emails into categories for us if we so choose. That's been around for a while. But to support artificial intelligence and higher intelligence when it comes to AI, we then have both machine learning as well as deep learning. So in the 80s, machine learning came to light, which was an approach to then achieve AI. Machine learning uses algorithms to help predict and then manage those big data sets, from Google Maps knowing how fast we're going, to Facebook facial recognition, to even our Netflix choices, and kind of categorizing them based on our actions. It's learning the more that we do, and it's getting smarter the more inputs that are in, and that helps that higher intelligence. Then in the 2010s, we really exploded the opportunities with AI because of what's called deep learning. This is a technique for implementing and optimizing machine learning. That's how we get self-driving cars, speech recognition, robotics. And this brings us to a place where AI has significant benefit in healthcare, and we're just starting to really see the tip of the iceberg. So we have deep learning that enables machine learning that then helps improve artificial intelligence. Now, supporting all of this, and you can see that line on the bottom of the slide, is big data, because we have so much data available that we can then use these other techniques. But in managing big data, we need to have data science, which is those scientific methods and the ability for us to then build algorithms. We then use those algorithms and analyze the outputs of those algorithms that then helps with data analytics and data mining, which is that discovery, interpretation, and then communication of meaningful patterns in data. Because if you think about it, data is nice, but it's just a bunch of stuff. What we really need is to be able to translate all that data, all that information, whether it's health information or how we're driving our cars. We need something to help translate all those data points into evidence that can then be used in action thing can be taken on. And that's where we are today when it comes to AI. So it's important to then define and differentiate the differences between, say, machine learning or traditional machine learning and artificial intelligence. Machine learning, in defining this, is humans are providing machines the ability to then learn and understand without being explicitly programmed, meaning we don't have to tell a computer to do the same thing minutely every time, as we can build an algorithm that it then uses based on different inputs to then make some decisions and identify patterns in the data. So the machine is actually learning the more inputs are given to that particular program. If we then move over to artificial intelligence, defining this is the way machines mimic the cognitive functions of human beings in our intelligence, such as learning, problem solving, and reasoning to solve complicated problems and identify patterns. So this is more of the learning aspect. And, if you've ever watched like a scientific or a sci-fi movie about how robots are going to overtake us because they're getting smarter than us, that's like the doomsday version of artificial intelligence, is that these robots get so smart that they're going to overtake us. But when we're looking at the applications of, say, machine learning or artificial intelligence, we're seeing a lot of these applications already today. So when it comes to machine learning, we use voice recognition. We can classify as what news, which is really helpful in some respects, right? Because we're consumers, we're unique in what we want to read. And so machine learning can then give into our feeds, whether it's social media or the web, can start giving us news or information that is most interesting to us. That's nice, but you can see the opposite side of that, where then it really focuses only on the news that we believe in, and that's how we develop biases, and we don't see the other stuff that might exist, which can then lead to misinformation. So with every good here, there's a consideration or a potential danger as well. What machine learning can also do is optimize electronic health record systems to reduce, say, readmission rates, clinical trial optimization, as well as research optimization. And we're going to get into a few of those applications in more detail here in the next few slides. When it comes to artificial intelligence, there's so much opportunity in this space, and we're just seeing the beginnings of that now when it comes to healthcare and then pharmacy specifically, from disease diagnosis and imaging to drug design, back to the research side, translational research, aviation, marketing, media. There's so much that we're seeing with artificial intelligence. And rather than just read you the words, I want to go over a few examples here later on in the presentation. With anything, with any technology, comes limitations and considerations. When it comes to machine learning, because we're dealing with these algorithms, requires high maintenance and special care of that data, because the interpretation and translation of the data relies heavily on good data and also good algorithms. And so if you, again, behind this are all human beings, right? It's human beings building algorithms. And so if those algorithms are built incorrectly, you're going to get bad data out. Also, if you put bad data in, no matter how good the algorithm, you're going to get bad data out as well. So several high-performing machine learning models can generate results that are difficult to then interpret as well. And so these machines are so smart that if the output is uninterpretable, it can't then be used and translated to practice. So those are some of those limitations when it comes to machine learning. Artificial intelligence, wow, lots of different challenges here if used incorrectly. And one of those is patient privacy, because we want to make sure that we're protecting that health information as part of any AI tool that we use. Also, inconclusive results or bad results can be generated from bad data. The other is, what about these legal liability issues? If we're training something to problem solve, if we're training a machine that gets smarter and smarter and smarter, who then is really ultimately responsible for that piece of technology if something goes wrong? Was it the person that originally built the algorithm, but now the algorithm is a lot different than what was originally built because it's gotten smarter? Is it the sources of the data that weren't correct? So who ultimately is responsible if there's harm from artificial intelligence? And I'm not going to go over that today. That's a maybe existential question for another day, but it's something that's being hotly debated when it comes to both the intersection of health and legal conversations. So I'm a visual person. I know I've gone over a lot of definitions that inform the use of AI. I think a visual is really helpful here as we transition from the definitions to how it's actually used in practice. And let's start here on the left, where we have data that's generated. And data can be generated from so many different sources, and it can be structured data in really clean data set, or it can be just unstructured data, say video or audio. And so that data is generated. That data then needs to be stored and categorized in a way that can be accessible, and that's stored in databases on servers. So these 2 points are big data. This is big data, where data is generated and data is stored. Then we move to data processing. This is the process of using that data through computing and AI algorithms to start to make sense of it, to start to actually detect patterns. And then once those patterns are detected, we can then identify signals and then input those algorithms or use those algorithms to get smarter and smarter and smarter to translate to actionable insights. On the left here, we have big data. On the right, we have artificial intelligence. This is a really nice graphic that I've used to help describe. So how do we get our data? We know that one of the major risks of artificial intelligence is bad data, because bad data in can lead to bad actions out. So where does our data come from, and how can it be used effectively? Before I go into some of these sources of data, as a patient safety expert, I think it's vitally important to remember that behind every piece of data is a patient, is a human being, is a child, a spouse, a grandparent. It's so easy when we talk about big data, big denominators, big data set, that we get lost in the numbers and we almost dehumanize it. But we are in the human business in healthcare. And so this is just an image to say, our pharmacy data sources are many, our healthcare data sources are many. But remember, there's a child, there's a person, there's a grandparent behind every single one of those pieces of data. I've worked in this space, in this field, as it relates to patient safety for many years. And one of our publications is here. And it talks a little bit about big data in pharmacy and the types of healthcare data that are available to us to then build algorithms around. And we have both our administrative data types as well as our clinical data types. In the administrative data types, we have data that comes from the government. In the United States, that might be the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. There are different sources of data in different parts of the world. We survey a lot in healthcare. We do national surveys. We do surveys of our staff. We do surveys of our patients. Those are all sources of data. We can get data from our commercial vendors, including health plans. We can do insurance billing data, financial data. But the important thing here is that administrative data does lack key clinical detail. And that's where we need to tap into our clinical data sources, because our clinical data sources are going to then drive clinical AI and clinical decision-making. Some examples of clinical data sources include our hospital's electronic medical records, our physician group electronic medical records, our ambulatory care electronic medical records, and hopefully it's some integrated delivery records. We may have a variety of clinical databases, from adverse drug reaction databases to lab databases. And really what we want is access to all aspects of a patient's data, because what that does is that gives us a holistic total view of that patient's care, and not this segmented siloed world that many of us have been living in healthcare for many years. That's the internal data, and there's lots of other internal data that we've used for patient safety AI tools, including safety event data. That's those voluntary error reports, safety results from surveys, medication safety events that occurred, sentinel events, complaints, financial data, safety huddles. There are so many different sources of data that we have. Some, again, are a little more structured than others, but all can be useful when it comes to AI. So how do we then use big data to promote better care? This is a visual from that publication that I referenced before, and I'm not going to read all these to you, but I think this goes to show that there are lots of emerging and current uses of AI in care now, from the optimization of clinical decision support tools. Clinical decision support is really important in our hospitals and health systems. But if used incorrectly, it can result, say, in alert fatigue. If it's not optimized and our pharmacists get just loads and loads of alerts, what happens is our pharmacists and our health teams don't maybe pay attention to all those alerts because they're fatigued. So those alerts need to be optimized. AI is already being used in formulary management. How do we predict, say, shortages? How do we use AI and machine learning for inventory management and control, as well as adverse event monitoring? Can certainly help us measure the quality of care and patient outcomes. How are our patients doing in a particular area? And then better care transitions. We can actually, using AI, identify those patients that are at higher risk for non-compliance, maybe due to social economic factors, maybe due to polypharmacy, maybe due to previous history in terms of refill data. So we can predict those patients that may need more action, that may need more help because of this non-compliance. And that's another great tool and function of AI. All right. So hopefully you're staying with me. I really appreciate that as we go through some of these really important definitions using some visuals. I want to talk a little bit about health information technology, specifically in pharmacy practice, because for those of us in practice, this is where it matters, right? We would call this the sharp end. How does this technology actually help us in pharmacy practice? So I want to talk a little bit about highlighting the benefits and risk considerations for managing health information technology in pharmacy practice models. As you're likely aware, there are so many benefits that we've seen in healthcare with the advent of technology. It has helped us reduce medication errors. As a pharmacist, I love computerized prescriber order entry because that means I don't have to read physician handwriting, right? So that's a huge benefit of CPOE. Unfortunately, though, anytime we adopt a technology, there might be unintended consequences as well. So with CPOE, it's helped in so many ways, but now with drop-down menus, it might be easier to select hydroxyzine instead of hydralazine. So we have wrong selection errors that may be unintended consequences of health IT that now we have to guard against. Despite that, there are still many benefits where we're achieving best practices, and it allows us to optimize those clinical decision support tools, which we've talked about. Many of you may be familiar with smart pumps. So these are IV pumps that have a database. They're smart because they're able to be programmed in with a variety of different medications to run at various rates, which is really great. That's why we call them smart pumps. But if you don't use a smart pump correctly, if you don't use the programming feature, if you just dial it up so it puts in as much medication as quickly as possible, then it's no longer a smart pump. It's just a pump because you haven't used those smart features. So one of the things about HIT is you have to use HIT as intended to get the benefits of it. It might help us centralize patient records and allow access for our patients across all settings. I have my own access to my own healthcare portal. That way I can see the data that's uploaded. I can keep track of my own health. And what it does is it gives me the information to then ask the right questions to my providers. Many organizations have identified health information technology's benefits, but also the risks that it might pose. The Joint Commission, a United States-based group, does issue sentinel event alerts, and they've identified 25% of medication errors do have some type of health IT component, maybe because it wasn't used correctly or because it caused an unintended consequence, maybe a wrong selection error. But on the other side of that, many hospitals have reported a significant decrease in mortality, death, and harm after implementing technology like CPOE. And so we know that technology helps, but technology is only as good as those who implement it and those who use it correctly. AI is just the same. So when implementing health information technology, a risk analysis should be undertaken. When introducing health information technology, we absolutely must look at the impact on safety, both pre and post implementation. I'm not going to get into all the detail on failure modes and effects analysis, which is a tool that can be used to assess risk before implementation, but that's a great tool to use. And then post-implementation, studying and making sure that we're looking for some of those unintended consequences or maybe a bump in errors in a particular part of the medication use process. Ultimately, health information technology is a tool. It doesn't always improve workflow. There are many that will tell me, oh, once we get this new electronic health record, it will improve all of our workflows, or we can reduce staff in this area. And that is rarely the case, because what health information technology it does is improve our practices, but likely doesn't reduce staff or always improve workflow. Because what we need to do is redesign those unsafe workflows to a better workflow that includes health information technology. No matter what we do or how we do it, we should have constant surveillance. This isn't something where if we implement a new technology, if we start to use AI, we can't just implement it and then look away. It requires constant surveillance to ensure that it's working as intended and isn't resulting in any additional errors in parts of the medication use system. And that brings us to this unintended consequences slide, because unfortunately, there are unintended consequences of health information technology. It may actually create more or different work for clinicians. So, telling clinicians that they're going to do less work because of technology is probably incorrect. They may just be doing different types of work, maybe charting in a different way or accessing different systems. Unfortunately, health information technology may result in unfavorable workflow where something was streamlined, but now we have to do this new thing because of HIT, maybe barcode scanning. You need to integrate that into your new workflow. It will, if done correctly, be safer, but it will also adjust your workflow. There's a never-ending demand of system changes, upgrades, downtime procedures. You do have to have downtime procedures. And what happens is clinicians become so reliant on the technology, they forget how to use paper. And that can cause an unsafe situation if there is downtime. So being very vigilant and thoughtful around downtime training is really important when it comes to patient safety. There may be negative emotions. Implementing technology, whether it's CPOE or AI, does involve change management. And I smile because change management is one of the more difficult things we do in healthcare. I think by definition, human beings don't love change. I mean, I don't mind change, but many of us do. And so change can be really difficult to manage, and there may be negative emotions around change and frustration, and it may impact culture. So being thoughtful about how to manage that effectively, you can't roll out a new change every single day. You'll get a revolt. There is also this generation of new kinds of errors. We've talked about wrong selection errors when it comes to CPOE, but there are also errors with AI, misreading diagnosis, wrong algorithm use, and being thoughtful and vigilant is going to be really important. And then we talked about this overdependence of technology. I think we see this in every aspect of our life is what would we do without our smartphone? What would we do without our email calendar? We're all getting increasingly dependent on technology, but we also need to know how to function in case that technology no longer is available to us. Pharmacists play an absolutely vital role in health information technology. Pharmacists, we are the medication use experts. There is a strong medication component in health information technology. So we as pharmacists must have involvement in every single step of health information technology. These are the steps that are involved in the safe adoption of health information technology. And it starts with data, information, and knowledge management. This is making sure that the data that goes into our systems is accurate, and that requires some data validation. And so if you have an electronic system that's automatically pulling data from whatever source it is, it needs to be validated. If that's coming through from electronic health records, then you likely need to do a small chart review to ensure that the data is being pulled in an accurate way. You don't need to read through 1,000 charts, but you likely need to read through 20, 40, 50 charts to ensure that that information being pulled is correct, because bad data in means bad actions out. Once we've validated that data, we then can help develop the system. What are we looking for? Are we looking for risk of bleeding? Are we looking for signs of infection? Are we looking for issues with surgery? What are we looking for? And then how do we develop a system to then use good data to capture it? And then we're going to implement, maintain, and optimize that system. If you're familiar with the Plan, Do, Study, Act, Model for Improvement, or Plan, Do, Check Act, this is going to follow that plan. Or that model. So P is plan. So in the first two, we're developing our plan using good data. Then we're going to implement it. That's the do. Plan, do. We're going to implement that machine learning or that new HIT. Then we're going to act on, or we're going to plan, do, check. We're going to make sure that we plan, do, study, or check our data. And we're going to study to make sure that what we get out of that health IT is what we expected to get out and is actionable. And then we're going to act on it. So again, we're developing our plan, we're doing our plan, we're studying or checking the results of our plan. And then finally, we're translating that output to practice analytics. And this is where our patients benefit from health information technology, from artificial intelligence. It's all in practice. So let's talk a little bit more about practice analytics. Practice analytics builds on all the definitions that we've already gone over in this presentation. Practice analytics involves data, those discrete elements, turning into evidence, which is data with meaning. This is one of my favorite things to think about, is data is all around us, but data means nothing without interpretation, without organization, without assessment and analytics. That's what translates data into evidence we can use in practice. And that's where analytics comes in. We are increasingly reliant on AI in practice analytics because AI is such a powerful tool to translate all those discrete elements and big data into something that can be used in patient care. It focuses on optimizing outcomes while also increasing efficiency of care. So not only are we getting better outcomes, but we're doing so quicker, and those are somewhat tied. I mean, if you think about oncology, the quicker that we get a correct diagnosis of a particular cancer, the more then we can focus on that treatment early and often. In looking at analytics, that translation from data to evidence, there's a variety of different analytics as well. Most of analytics just provide insight. They just provide information or learning. Descriptive analytics, for example, what happens when I do this? Diagnostic analytics, why did that happen? Predictive analytics, as the name would suggest, what will happen in the future? Those three are all just providing insights. But what we really need in today's healthcare environment, which is incredibly complex, is tools to help make decisions and take action. And that's where prescriptive analytics and artificial intelligence work together. Prescriptive analytics is what should I do? So based on what happened and why it happened, and we know what will happen in the future, what should I do about it today? And that's prescriptive analytics in practice. That is practice-based analytics. And what helps us do that is artificial intelligence. Is then how do I help enhance my own reasoning? Maybe not completely replace it, but certainly complement and enhance my reasoning as a human being to then take that action on behalf of the patient. And that is what brings us to AI in pharmacy practice. How do we use artificial intelligence in complementary with pharmacy professionals to apply AI to provide the best possible care? There have been many great guidance statements and recommendations when it comes to AI. because we know that AI is here to help us, and we want to make sure that we're guarding against unintended consequences. This list of statements, and I'm not going to read these all to you in detail, but I want to highlight a few. And this comes from the ASHP Pharmacy Forecast 2025. So this year, this is hot off the presses. And a few different items worth note. One, these are all statements and recommendations made by this publication. And it says that health system leaders must empower pharmacists to drive enterprise-wide generative AI agenda that elevates the role of pharmacy workforce. So we as leaders and practitioners in the pharmacy space need to make sure that we are actually purposefully driving an agenda that includes AI in how we do our work. We can't ignore AI, is essentially what we're saying here. We also then must embrace a mandate, a requirement to lead the development of AI agenda and prioritize 2 or 3 strategic areas. So it's not enough to just say, oh, we know AI exists. It's how do we then use AI in practice? We need to also establish common workflows and integrating health IT into AI. And it's not just our practitioners caring for patients. Schools of pharmacy and professional societies must also train on and incorporate AI into practice, because it would be short-sighted to not think that our future pharmacists are going to use AI. And so we need to expose them to AI as early as possible, and ultimately need to foster a culture where AI is seen as an augmentation to human decision-making rather than a replacement. We're not going to go out there and say, oh, pharmacists, we don't need to exist anymore, right? We're done. It's just going to be AI and robots. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is AI can help us as practitioners care for the patient. I can tell you, even in my own firm, I get contacted by clients who say, how are you using AI to help us work better? And so everybody is asking about AI, and having a good answer is going to be important as part of an agenda. ASHP through AJHP also put out a statement on the use of AI in pharmacy. And again, not going to read this all to you verbatim, but I think it's important to highlight this. Pharmacists are responsible, we, as the medication use experts, for determining which aspects of medication use and management are best handled by pharmacists or by AI. And it probably isn't an or, but maybe even together, right? How is AI going to then help us augment our really great knowledge already? And how can AI make our lives both easier, but our patients' lives better? And that brings us to a few applications of AI in healthcare that we're already seeing. And let's go over a few of these in a little bit more detail. First, deep learning. So that deep learning that helps AI get smarter is being used today to diagnose diseases. We know that early diagnosis is one of the most important factors in the outcome of a patient's care, whether it's prostate cancer or an infection. AI can rapidly process that large amount of information from disparate sources, from the electronic health record, from prescription filling history, from all these different places, from lab data, and arrives at likely causes for symptoms quickly. So deep learning can help with diagnosis, but you can easily see if you have incomplete data or bad data, that diagnosis may be incorrect, which is why it's so important to have the right information in the beginning before AI gets involved. How about machine learning and AI in radiology? One great example here, a team of researchers at Osaka University has developed and is using a deep learning algorithm that can reliably diagnose many neurological diseases, including epilepsy. What this program does is it scans a patient's results here, comparing their images with tens of thousands of other scans from healthy patients, identifying potential lesions and other abnormalities in the brain. And so what this machine learning can do is say, okay, I know that this set of scans is normal. I'm going to then go through this database rapidly, compare the patient scans to that, and then flag abnormalities right away that then can be acted on. And then we have not only just clinical uses, but also automating administrative uses. AI in healthcare billing uses smart algorithms to analyze and assign costs, as well as correctly structure invoice requests. Can you imagine how much more efficient we can get with our billing, our information, our communication, if some of it can be left up to AI? It's not just general healthcare, but it's definitely in pharmacy that we're seeing AI being used more frequently. Today, artificial intelligence is being used to analyze electronic health record data, claims data, and drug information databases to provide clinical decision support. So what AI can do is actually help optimize our clinical decision support tools, thereby reducing potential for alert fatigue, because now I'm only flagging those alerts I know matter to this specific patient, rather than just dumping data that maybe apply to all the patients because I have to. I can use AI to just say what is relevant to this patient, and I'm going to flag that to just this patient, and then do that for every single patient on my service. Other pharmacy-related functions suitable for AI include assessing just general treatment patterns, alerting providers to potential for medication errors. That's one of the areas that I've been involved in when it comes to AI, is looking at a patient holistically, pulling data from a clinic visit, internal medicine lab data, from a hospitalization or a surgery or their refill data, putting it all together. And what we're able to do is actually predict an alert before an issue occurs for that patient or an error occurs. Maybe this patient is now at higher bleeding risk. Maybe they're at higher risk for post-operative events. So we're able to then alert before it happens and take intervention. We can also screen for potential adverse drug reactions, drug-drug interactions, as well as help assist with pharmacokinetic monitoring. The place we want to get to here is if I am a pharmacist and I have 30 patients that I'm responsible for, and maybe I don't have time to go in depth in all 30 because of my time demands and needs for other priorities, but I want to know what 5 are at higher risk today. What 5 patients do I need to make sure that I focus on today because I know they're at higher risk? That's what AI is helping us do. And AI will continue then to improve that quality of care by reducing human error, decreasing both pharmacist and physician fatigue arising from routine tasks. So we're not trying to replace human beings with AI. We're trying to free up human beings to make our higher level cognitive decisions. Importantly, pharmacy applications of AI, though, may result in these legal challenges. I mentioned this earlier on, is when there's a malpractice case involving AI, who's responsible? Who ultimately is responsible, especially if that AI is doing deep learning where it's actually getting smarter and moving away from the original algorithm or the original information or intent programmed? So when we talk about the responsibility of pharmacists in AI, I think we need to actively seek and address 3 questions. So in thinking about your use of AI in your practice, you need to think about these. Which medication or therapy are appropriate for AI? Where can our patients most benefit from AI first? And then when we implement those models for those patients, how do we evaluate them? How do we make sure that our patients are benefiting from them and not being unintentionally harmed? And then for each use case, which approach is more important? Because we do need to manage the impact and we need to prevent mismanagement. AI models that run on poorly sourced data, which we've talked about, data that has disproportionate representation, meaning that there's an uneven reliance on certain data, that it's not all be considered evenly, or correlated data that it's assumed to be causal could be unintentionally used to magnify bias or discrimination. So some of the considerations for us as we hopefully intelligently implement artificial intelligence. Now I want to move to a practice-based example that's particularly germane to the purpose of our symposium today. When we look at AI, it does hold a lot of promising potential to revolutionize the work that we're doing in the over-the-counter medicine space in terms of safety, distribution, and guidance, especially during Hajj in times like this. And when we look at these types of events, these mass pilgrimage events, it does carry some challenges for our health providers. And specifically looking at over-the-counter medication use during Hajj, there are 3 or 4 main issues that have been identified. There's self-medication risks, language and literacy barriers, supplement misuse, as well as environmental stressors. And you can see from this pie chart that they all carry almost equal impact in terms of common challenges. And if we look at some examples here, common over-the-counter like neurobuyon and 7Cs, if you overuse these because you're not familiar with them or you have a language barrier, if you overuse them, you may run into problems. These can be very helpful over-the-counter products, but again, if you overuse, that can be a problem like anything else, or they may interact with other medications you're taking, but you may not know because you're not familiar with them. And so how is AI going to then help in these examples? Well, there's a variety of different tools that AI is being used for that can really assist us in pharmacy with over-the-counter management. First, we have artificial intelligence-powered mobile health applications. AI can and does identify medications through image recognition and can provide translated instructions in the user's language. So if you have this mobile health app and you're not exactly sure what this is because you can't read or interpret that language, you can scan it and then it will translate that to your own language. So pilgrims for Hajj receive AI-driven information on whether that OTC medication is inappropriate. Because if you have your other health information loaded into that app, AI can help compare that scanned tablet or bottle to what you're already taking and then provide specific information to you in a language that you can understand. That's hugely beneficial. We also have virtual pharmacist chatbots, where artificial intelligent chatbots are integrated into, say, kiosks or those mobile apps that we've talked about and can provide 24/7 medication advice, where you ask this chatbot a question and it will then give you advice back. Now, you may get to a point where it says, wait a second, this is really an emergency, or this is overcomplicated. And so I'm going to refer you then to a hospital or to a clinic, or hey, can you call a pharmacist right now? We can access our pharmacist health telehealth center. We then have predictive analytics for supply chain management. Because there's an influx of people during times like Hajj, AI can analyze historic usage patterns and then predict what drugs or supplements will be most needed by those people and ensure adequate stock, including by specific geography, where there's a larger population of people, to ensure that we don't run out and there aren't shortage or supply chain issues. AI, as I've already talked about, can help with adverse event monitoring. This is happening right now, and I've been involved in this, where AI tools scan hospital reports, clinic logs, your own user information in your health app to detect clusters of adverse drug reactions, even toxicities, misuse, and counterfeit products. We can actually create heat maps where we see geographic regions that are associated with higher toxicity, maybe higher adverse drug reactions. And what that does is maybe identify an area that requires additional education or intervention. It can also help us identify substandard or falsified products that may have entered our supply chain. And then finally, we get to this personalized supplemental or supplementation guidance, where AI can use biometric or health data, say wearable devices. Maybe you have, I don't have one, but an Apple Watch, or even electronic health records. So based on our biometric data, can recommend individualized supplement regimens. Maybe you're vitamin deficient and you need an OTC medication. Maybe you have high heart rate, or maybe there's an arrhythmia, right? So AI can help you identify what do you need and when is it time to actually seek help beyond just technology. Lots of different exciting uses in AI. We've talked about a few of these already in terms of AI pharmacy interventions, and there are lots of interventions AI can help us do during Hajj. And AI, they all carry high impact, meaning that these are really going to impact positively our patient care, from personalized advice to ADE monitoring to predictive stock management, chatbots, and medication scanning apps. Suffice it to say, the future of AI is today. It's being used now, and it's very exciting. But remember, AI is only as good as the human beings that are validating and verifying the data, that are building the technology, and monitoring and surveilling those algorithms, because AI can really help with the assessment of disease, can manage our complications in a very complex healthcare environment, can assist our patients, and then also help supplement and assist in medical research. So we're not going to have time to really talk about this today because I want to make sure that I address those questions that you've so kindly submitted. But maybe think about this on your own. Talk to your colleagues about this. Is what benefits or challenge do you anticipate with AI in your own pharmacy practice? Think about how AI can be used to support the wonderful work that you do on behalf of patients, and then don't stop talking about it because this isn't going to go away. In conclusion, our pharmacists, you all, are integral leaders in health information technology, data science, and artificial intelligence. This is clearly a growing and exciting field that will continue to impact the role that we play in caring for patients. But remember, it's important to always consider how technology can work together. Data science, make sure we're validating big data, that we're using artificial intelligence wisely. It's that intelligent artificial intelligence. And then how we as humans are then programming our automation and robots to be helpful to us. Be thankful for what we have, because we are in an exciting time, but be even more excited about what's to come. The future will be defined by those who actively engage. This is only as good as the humans that engage in it. And so really, I encourage you to engage in artificial intelligence on behalf of our patients. So with that, I'd like to pull up our post questions, our second round of questions, in hopes that you learned a little something today. So we'll go ahead and pull those up now.
Okay, if we can just give them a couple of seconds.
Absolutely. Thank you for your kind responses to those questions.
Okay, we're just finishing the polls for the first one, and then we're going to display the second. We'll give them a couple of seconds, and then we'll show the results if you like, unless you have more you would like to tell us of this interesting topic.
No, the results would be great.
Okay, let us just start the second poll.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Okay, those should be popping up right now, dear ladies and gentlemen. You can feel the suspense.
I know. I feel the learning that has happened.
Yeah.
A lot of real intelligence out there, not artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we've got the answers in.
Very good. So for our first question, which of the following enables computers, machines to mimic the perception, learning, problem solving, and decision-making capabilities of the human mind? And that is, of course, artificial intelligence. So that would be D, artificial intelligence. Hopefully you selected that. And then
I'll just show you the results. Sorry,
very
Dr.
good.
John. I'm
Yes.
going to share with you the results. So this is the first poll. You can see the percentages on the left is from the first,
Very good.
and on the right is from the second time you asked the first poll.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
there's an increase from 50 to 58% that it's AI the answer.
Good. Good.
Then for the second poll, on the left you see the pre-question, and on the right you see the post.
Mr. T, I cannot see the poll. Dr. John, can you see it?
I did for a moment and now it's disappeared.
It disappeared. I don't see it.
I'm going to share it once again. Give me a second, please.
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to ask you to stop sharing. That's the reason. There we go. Give me a
Perfect.
second, please. Right, we'll go back to poll number 1. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, now
I do. Yes, perfect.
Yes. So please, if you can go over the answers. On the left is the first poll at the beginning of the presentation, and on the right, it's the same poll at the end of the presentation.
Very good. These can be very tricky, those definitions, and it looks like there was an improvement, which is always nice to see. So which of the following enables computers and machines to mimic the perception, learning, problem solving, and decision-making of the human mind? The key there is the human mind, that intelligence. And so this would be mimic, so artificial, and then intelligence, making D the correct answer.
Right. And then this is the second poll.
Nice to see an increase again. That means many of us have learned something. Which of the following statements about AI in pharmacy practice is not true or incorrect? A is certainly true. We're doing that today. C is true as well. And D is true as well. B is not true because it is being used to assess treatment patterns. We're seeing that in the clinical setting today. So the correct answer here is B. Which we did see an increase. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Are we
Well,
ready
and
for the
that does
discussion?
conclude the presentation. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and certainly want to leave a little bit of time for us to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hartig, for the visionary presentation on the integration of artificial intelligence in clinical care.
Sorry, Prof. If you can just move your camera a little bit down so we can see you. Thank you.
Okay. Would that be
Yeah,
okay?
and speak a bit closer, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to. My voice is okay now. Can you hear it?
Now it's better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. We have 5 minutes, so we'll just go. If you can go quickly on answering some of these questions. I think the first question you did answer it, but if you can elaborate more, what are the most promising AI application for frontline pharmacists during high volume events like Hajj?
Thank you for that question. And just to quickly answer, I think there are a few that come to mind. One is providing those patients with information on demand. So using mobile health apps, using AI, allowing those patients to access information in real time. And then if they can't get their question answered, connecting them directly to someone who can. That is huge. The other is prioritization of those patients that really need help. And so if you have a whole cadre of patients, but only 5 of them are at highest risk, I'm going to start with those first to be more efficient with the care that I provide, and then move on to the others if there's time. That's going to be really important, particularly when there's an influx of individuals that need help. Thank you for that question.
Second question, how can we ensure ethical use of AI in clinical decision-making within diverse patient populations?
That is a very good question. And I don't know if there's a really short answer to that, but a couple just really generic answers. One is we need to make sure that that data that we're providing is reflective of a patient population that we're treating and that we're not inherently creating any bias. The other is it needs constant surveillance. And so as we're using AI, making sure that we're surveilling that to make sure that we're not missing data elements, that we're not mistreating or undertreating certain patient populations, and that we're optimizing and refining those models, again, to reflect the very diverse patient population that exists in the world.
I think the 1 million question is, who will supervise AI?
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be any one person. I think this is transparency is key, and we need to hold each other accountable. I think if you put all your power in one person, that's when we get into trouble with AI, because there isn't this mutual accountability that has to exist when there's something that can be so important and so crucial, such as AI.
Yeah, a number of audiences asking that if you could provide a link or resources on information or practical use of AI by pharmacists. Is there any a website or a link that they can access to read more or learn more about that?
You know, I think the best for pharmacists, I think some of the great resources come from our professional associations, and those exist around the world. The ones that I've chosen to rely on are the American Society of Health System Pharmacists, who have a great pharmacy forecast as well as statements. The American Pharmacists Association is another US-based organization that has some statements, but I'm sure there's also regional and jurisdictional associations that have put out guidance. But I've used the ASHP primarily because they have some really forward-thinking work.
I agree. I 100% agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing, the information and for enlightening us about this important and very hot topic. So thank you so much.
Now, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for our hosts and organizers. Thank you.
And now we move to last but not certainly not least, it is a great honor to welcome Dr. Paul Bush. I had the pleasure of knowing him at one of the well-known international conferences, DUFAT, for many years. I don't know if he would remember that or not. Even my son, Abdullah, was giving him his YouTube account, so you can access his YouTube account. So, Dr. Paul was so kind to accept a 5 years old request, and he took his account, and I'm not sure if he had time to access the YouTube account. So I had the pleasure of knowing him, and Dr. Bush is an executive consultant and former vice president for global resources development and consultation at American Society of Health System Pharmacists. He has held leadership roles at several top US health systems, including Duke University Hospital and Medical University of South Carolina. He's a PharmD, MBA, and a fellow of American Society of Health System Pharmacists, and he has authored key pharmacy leaders. He has authored key pharmacy leadership texts while earning numerous national awards. He is going to lead, the remaining of this session today, and he's going to introduce our next speaker, Dr. James Sterlett and Dr. Anthony Ducklow. So please join me to welcome our great leader, Dr. Paul Bush. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Professor Al-Sara, for such a welcome today. Yes, it's great to have the relationships that I do in your part of the world, and continue to look forward to that. But we're very happy at ASHP to contribute to this conference today. We received a call a little while ago and asked if we could identify some high-level speakers on the topic of patient counseling. So I reached out to some of my colleagues at the Medical University of South Carolina, and they were excited to join us, and they're going to provide that presentation today for you. It's going to be a team taught. One of the things about patient counseling in the United States is all of the colleges of pharmacy and their faculty develop the students' capabilities in this regard, and they participate in a national competition. So with that in mind, when I reached out, it was very clear that these two individuals were the leaders at MUSC to do that. So it's my pleasure to introduce them to you this morning. First of all, Dr. James Sterlett, who is on the left in the photo there, is an associate professor in the Department of Pharmacy and Outcome Sciences at the Medical University of South Carolina, which is in Charleston, South Carolina, on the East Coast of the United States. His clinical practice is based at the Feder Healthcare Network and also at the Chief of Diabetes Clinic in Charleston. He is a board certified ambulatory care pharmacist and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. So welcome, James. His colleague is Anthony DeClue. Dr. DeClue is a graduate of the Medical University of South Carolina, and he works with Dr. Sterrett. He's also an associate professor in the Department of Pharmacy and Outcome Sciences. His clinical practice is based at the MUSC Medication Therapy Management Clinic, and he is also a board certified ambulatory care pharmacist and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. So welcome, Anthony, as well. So take it away. I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Can I confirm that you can hear me okay? I had two microphone options and wasn't sure if this one was working correctly this morning.
Yes, we hear you well, Doctor. Just one reminder, sorry, about the polls. If we can play the polls at the beginning and one more time at the end, and then we can cross-reference to see the answers. Just a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so if I'm doing this correctly, I should be sharing the screen and you should be seeing the slides in their full glory.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as the case may be, wherever you are from today. 7 p.m. for you. Well, it's different. It's still morning for us here. So today we're going to talk about effective patient counseling, and we're going to talk most specifically about motivational interviewing, which is both an attitude and a list of skill sets that you can employ to help you in some of the more difficult patient counseling situations you might find yourself in. In order to cover all that, we're going to identify the opportunities and the settings wherein this is useful. We're going to talk a little bit about what motivational interviewing is and what it's not. We'll cover specific strategies and techniques that are part of motivational interviewing to help you to be most effective. And then we'll summarize at the end everything that we've talked about. You've heard our introductions, so I don't want to belabor too much more in this space and lose time, but I would like to give you a picture of some of our practice settings and what that looks like. So upon graduating, learning from this gentleman here, who was one of my professors, I went to work for a large community pharmacy space where we dispensed medications. So this is where patients would come with their prescriptions from their prescribers, and we would hand over the medication, which involved a lot of counseling. I also, while working in that one location, worked in another community pharmacy that was uniquely situated inside of a family medicine clinic. So the providers and the patients were in the clinic seeing each other. And then I was more directly accessible to the providers, which kind of started my transition into ambulatory care, where I work with both patients and providers alike, serving as a clinical resource. Currently, I work out of the Medication Therapy Management Center, working one-on-one with patients, helping them understand their multiple disease states and multiple drugs that they're on, and making recommendations to their providers. I work in a clinic for patients who are unhoused here in the area that I work in, and I'm also a diabetes coach working with another group here in the city of Charleston. So a lot of different practice settings, always one-on-one with patients. Sometimes they're picking up the meds. Sometimes we're just talking about the meds they're on. And I do have access to providers directly, which is a nice luxury as well. Dr. Sterrett?
Yeah, I think something relevant to this is no matter if you're working with a provider or you're working with patients, and pharmacists often are in between those two, and we're often the go-between. So we have to have good communication skills. I think some of the things that we're going to talk about today, if you imagine in talking to a provider that you're collaborating with and you're hitting some resistance there, some of these skill sets we apply directly right over to those same situations. So kind of thinking about that, I actually work in a clinic setting now where I have a collaborative practice agreement. So I'm an extended type of provider for the nurse practitioners, the physicians and the PAs, the physician assistants. I work side by side. I have my own schedule, and I'm seeing patients and prescribing under the collaborative practice agreement for diabetes, for hypertension, and dyslipidemia. So doing a lot of direct patient care. The type of patients that I see are those that are probably the sickest patients. I get A1Cs on a routine basis of 13, 14, 15%. And so they're really sick. There's a lot of social determinants of health that are barriers that prevent them. So I have to really find out where that patient is before I can start sharing some of my expertise. And I think that's what this presentation can help you prepare for, is really realizing how important it is to find out where that patient's at.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We do have some pre-test questions we'll introduce here. I believe the slide content is available to you as well. At the end, we also have these questions back with the correct answers, as well as the rationales for each answer. I would like to acknowledge that because we have limited time. We could spend way more time than we have today to talk about this content, and we really want to spend our time in the content here. But as you can see, we have the poll for the first question here. So in which of the following scenarios is motivational interviewing most likely to be both useful and effective? So A, your patient's saying, I'm not taking this medication, in this case, an ARB. I don't care if it'll help my kidneys. It says dizziness right there on the bottle, and I can't allow for that. I drive a truck for a living, doc, for a living. This person doesn't want to be dizzy on this med while driving. The second patient says, I have not been taking this cholesterol medication, the statin. I feel just fine, and my brother was taking it and it made his muscles achy. C, another patient says, oh my goodness, my physician says I have high blood pressure. I had no idea. Here's a prescription he wrote for me for a new blood pressure medication. Please fill it and tell me anything you can. I really want to get this under control. And then we have A and B. Are these both situations, or A, B, and C situations where motivational interviewing is? Okay. And then we've got the scenario. We have another scenario for you here. Your patient says to you, I want him to breathe better, but I don't want my son on that inhaler. It's a steroid, and I'm not giving my son steroids. He's an athlete and on track for a scholarship in football, or what we might call soccer over here. He can't risk it. He can't be on steroids. He could get in trouble for that. So what would your appropriate response to this patient's parent be? A, tell me which is more important to you, your son's life or your son's scholarship. Is that something we're going to say to our patients? Or B, even though inhaled corticosteroids are first-line therapy for asthma, I can see you're dead set against this. We'll move to a different type of inhaler instead. Or C, if it gives you peace of mind, I too have been on a similar inhaler for most of my life, including during my previous days as a college athlete. Or D, look, your son needs to take it just like the physician prescribed it. Or E, you're concerned about your son's breathing. It sounds like you'd be willing to do anything to help him, as long as we could have prescribed something that would not cause him undue harm or jeopardize his future as an athlete. Would you mind if I share with you some more information about this particular inhaler, and then you tell me what you think? All right, now we have an example called look over the fence, one of the strategies we're going to cover in today's presentation. The question is, which of these is an example of looking over the fence? A, if I could wave a magic wand and you woke up tomorrow and you were no longer a smoker, how would that affect your quality of life? Or B, on the one hand, you want to do anything you can to reduce your risk of heart attack or stroke. So taking this cholesterol medication seems appealing. But on the other hand, you know this medication contains a risk for muscle pain, something you do not want to experience while working in construction. C, as a diabetes educator, I certainly have thoughts on this subject, but I'd really like to hear what you think about what you could do to get more physical activity. Or D, this medication really is next in line for treatment of your diabetes, but since you are resistant to the idea of doing an injection, I'll recommend this tablet instead, even though it's not quite as good as the injection. E, please don't perceive your previous attempt as a failure. Any time you spent away from smoking decreased the cumulative damage smoke could have caused to your body. Additionally, the fact that you attempted to quit before makes it more likely that you'll succeed now. All right, next question. Which of the following is a proven benefit of motivational interviewing? Is it that it is effective in increasing patient satisfaction? Is it helpful in increasing provider satisfaction? Is it effective in producing better health outcomes for our patients? Is it effective at improving medication adherence? Or is it all the above? What's the data tell us? So here is an outline of how we're going to go through motivational interviewing as a subject. We're going to talk about opportunities wherein you might use it and it could have use. We're going to talk about what it is and why we're doing it, what the value of it is. We'll talk about developing relationships with our patients, which is so important before we get into educating them. We want to reframe the concerns our patients have. We want to provide them information in a way that's non-threatening and that they're likely to understand and choose to use to help themselves. Then we want to respond to what they've learned and how they're interpreting what they've taught them and what decisions they're making. And then we'll talk about additional trainings that you can do to become more proficient in motivational interviewing. So what is the problem? Why do we need to be doing motivational interviewing? Dr. Sterrett, I know you had the pleasure of looking at some of the statistics from the area where a lot of our participants are in today. Would you care to?
Yeah, I took several looks to see if there was differences. I also we have some recent graduates that actually were Saudi pharmacists that came over and got PharmDs, and I had the pleasure of meeting with one of them for coffee this week, just to talk about what generally the pharmacist in that area might come across in terms of issues and practice type settings. And it's very similar to what we're dealing with. I also looked at the several Saudi studies that show the same types of things. When a patient has a complex health condition, chronic health condition, medication complexity, if they're having to use injections, if they're having to use inhalers, if there are multiple medications, the adherent traits go down. One thing that I did find is there was a nice study that actually showed that when a pharmacist actually took the time to counsel the patient appropriately, then it made a big difference. And so definitely our information and the expertise that we have is valued and can make a difference. And how do we multiply that potentially? Because we have a problem. It's expensive. People that don't take their medicines don't get any benefits, right? People that have these different issues, it's not just the medications. Sometimes it's lifestyle changes as well, that they're not willing to make a difference. They might out-eat all the diabetes medicines that we put on board and so forth. So whatever the issue potentially is, I think it's very similar, whether we're talking about the Middle East or talking about here in the US, the same types of scenarios. So we have a problem.
Our patients are sicker than they need to be, and they cost more money than it should cost to treat them. And there are things we can do to mitigate that. So traditional medicine, and we'll talk a little bit more about traditional medicine, but when we say traditional medicine, this is the history of medicine for, I'm sure, all of us. As you know, I, as the trained healthcare provider, have the perception, hey, I'm the expert. I've studied the body, I've studied the diseases, I've studied the drugs and the solutions. You need to just do what I say. And what we find is that doesn't work, because people don't just do what we say because we said it. There's other factors involved. And I apologize, I'm realizing I'm wearing the same color as the background. That can't be easy for your eyes. Oh. I'm like this body floating. So in this situation, patients are often discouraged from voicing their own opinions or their concerns. And that can be because a provider has an attitude that doesn't welcome it. It could be the system doing that by limiting time between patients and providers, where you as a provider might think that you're saving time by not hearing things from your patient. There's a lot of stuff that can go into that. Ultimately, when our patients aren't on board with the plans that we are making for them without them being a part of that plan making, it leads to either some ambivalence and or resistance. So we'll talk a little bit more about ambivalence or issue resistance, and then relational resistance. Dr. Sterrett, would you like to introduce them to ambivalence or issue resistance?
Yeah, so when we're talking about issue resistance, we're talking about the concerns or questions that you have, the doubts that lead a patient to conclude that they don't need to change their behavior. So, you know, I don't really need to take this medication. I feel fine. they lack the initiative in losing weight, maybe because they think, oh, that's just too hard to do, right? Avoidance of exercising, again, that's challenging. I got to take the time to do that. Or continuing to smoke because they're like, maybe they've tried and they're like, nah, I couldn't do it before. That's just too hard. I've been smoking since I was a young person and I smoke every day. I tried to quit and maybe they had some challenges. So there's some type of issue that's making them say, no way, I can't do it. Or in the case of ambivalence, well, there's positives and cons. So if you ask a patient, do you think that there's a reason to quit smoking? And they'll say, yeah, I know it's bad for me, but it makes me like stress-free, or it helps reduce the stress at the time. I can have a cigarette and just calm down. There's reasons for pro and con, and when they're sitting on the fence like that, it's just like issue resistance completely, because they're still not changing their behavior. So if they're either ambivalent, they have pros and cons, but it's still weighting more in that middle. It's just like weighting over on the resistance side. They're not going to make a change.
So in the case of ambivalence, the concern for your patient and getting them to make good health decisions is their understanding of their situation and everything that factors into that. So it's resistance on the issue. They don't understand why they need to bother doing something. They don't think they could do it even if they wanted to. They're not factoring in the risks or the benefits of certain behaviors accurately based on what those actual risks or benefits are. So that's called issue resistance. From here on out, we'll call that ambivalence, so we don't confuse it with the other type of resistance here, which is relational resistance. Relational resistance, the issue for the patient is not their situation, it's your relationship between you and them, the patient. So this is a relational harmony or lack thereof that is an issue. So this, when we respond to our patient's issue resistance, if we don't do so effectively, they can see us not as an advocate, but as an adversary, as an enemy. And so when we fail to build that relationship with them and our patients feel disrespected, this actually roots them in their behaviors. They might make bad health behaviors as a way of not complying with us because we've caused a harmful relationship there.
I think one way for you to very easily determine if you're getting ready to battle, to go into an argument, is if you say to the patient, you need to. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I'm pointing my finger because it's like, that's how aggressive it can come across. And that patient can potentially have face loss in that situation. Face loss, patients want to feel like they can make a difference for themselves. They want to feel competent. When you say you need to quit smoking, you might as well just finish that sentence with comma stupid, because you're saying that they don't have the ability to determine that is bad for them. Of course, patients that smoke know it's bad for them. There's other reasons why they're smoking. The other thing that they really want to be able to do, and I think there's an increase in patient curiosity and willingness to go out there and try to find information. And there's more information that's out there. So they're trying to come up with solutions on their own. And when we just come in and we just say, you got to do this, because I said so, that doesn't give them the sense that they can actually come up with the decisions for themselves. And patients are finding all kinds of information today on the internet. There's good and there's bad, and we're having to balance that out and hear where they're coming in at. It's very easy for me. Like I remember when I first started, I'm a fix-it person. I was drawn to this profession because it's problem solving. I love problem solving. You get this scenario and then boom, I've got the solution. And so like my wife tells me, I don't care. I don't need you to tell me what to do, right? It's like, I'm going to come up with a solution. I'm going to say, you got to do this. And I'm taking away that autonomy. And I will definitely cause that face loss. And when I would I would see the patient for the first time, and I would go through, okay, here's the plan. This is what you need to do. I've worked you up. This is going to get you to the result that you need to get to. And then a couple months later, they come back and they didn't do a single thing I told them to do. And I'd say, wait a minute. Maybe you didn't hear me the first time. Here's the plan. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank goodness that I got a chance to train in motivational interviewing. And it really inspired me to make a difference, because when I started using it, I could see a more positive benefit for my patients.
Thank you for sharing that. I think we can all relate to that one way or another. So those are opportunities for MI. So let's talk more about MI, or motivational interviewing, what specifically it is and isn't, and also why we do it. So it is a powerful strategy to address patient ambivalence and resistance through means that prevent that loss of phase. So we maintain the respect of the patient as being competent, intelligent enough to know the things they need to know, and having autonomy, having the right to live their lives the way they choose to, and to have control of their own lives. If ambivalence or resistance aren't there, motivational interviewing may not be necessary. And we do a lot of time, as was mentioned in our introduction, teaching our students motivational interviewing. And sometimes you can find yourself in a situation where you're kind of overselling and you're going through a lot of steps in dialogue, when the truth is the patient's already well ready to embrace a health behavior change. So we had an example in one of the introductory questions. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had high blood pressure. This terrifies me. I'll take anything. I'll do anything. Please tell me what to do. That person's not asking for motivational interviewing. They're asking for the solution. They're ready to hear it and to do it. So you don't have to go through all these steps in that situation. But for your patients who are a little less inclined, or who are struggling to make good health behavior decisions, this is a place you can meet that. So what happens in the medical model is patients are worked up, and it's almost inhumane in the sense that they're not a part of that workup. So what the medical model, this is the traditional medicine we talked about earlier, what it is missing is the expertise of the patient. So we all know our own expertise in terms of our clinical understanding and training, but the patient knows the patient. The patient knows what's important to the patient. The patient knows why the patient thinks the things the patient thinks. The patient knows why they do and what they don't do. And these are very important information pieces to factor in to any health plan. And unfortunately, despite our best efforts, we don't get to tell patients what's important. We can tell them what we're concerned about, why we think something should be important, but the patient gets to decide. So anytime we say, you need to do this, or it's really important that we don't get to decide what's important. We do get to create an environment where they can share what is important to them, and then help them understand how the decisions they're making align or do not align with what is important and what their goals are. But that requires some back and forth with the patient, and including their expertise.
I think this traditional model also sets up healthcare providers for bad quality of job, of life in that regard, because you're judging yourself based on whether or not the patients do what you tell them to do. When you go home at night, did you provide the patient with the best opportunities to make good decisions? Were you able to connect with them and then share information that can help them? If they decide, if I say, we have a discussion about smoking cessation, and the patient says, today's not the day. And I'll say, sounds like you're not ready to quit. Let me know when you are, or if you'd like to discuss this more in the future. I go home and I sleep good at night because I have offered that situation. I might even, if I'm able to build enough trust, I can create some more opportunities like, hey, I'm concerned about this, and so forth. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to talk to a patient like that in dialogue with them without setting up an argument. But I don't judge it based on whether the patient does what I tell them to do or not. I judge whether or not I did a good job sharing my expertise. And did I open myself up to create enough rapport with the patients to make a difference.
Thank you. Yeah, it is freeing for you as a provider when you realize that we do respect a patient's right to live their life, and it's not our job to live their lives for them. That can be freeing for you from feeling the weight of the fact that somebody's still smoking, even though you really wish that they were. So we've addressed this kind of already, what some of the concerns are, why the traditional medical model does not work. So the pioneers of motivational interviewing for healthcare professionals, the ones who wrote the book, you might say, the text that is often cited, and that is the basis for a lot of the content we're teaching you today, are Bruce Berger and William, or he goes by Bill Valome. And they built their work off of the work of other individuals. Would you like to share a little bit about how that grew up?
Yeah, so Miller and Rolnick were actually they're psychiatrists who did a lot of work in addiction counseling, and they actually coined the term motivational interviewing. And then Bruce and Bill really took it and actually developed over time. Even they were figuring out as they were doing the training and working with healthcare providers from all over the world, what was working, what were their concerns, and how we're addressing. And some of the things that they changed is essentially from what Miller and Rolnick did with addiction counseling, where you really had to bring out in that patient what was important to them to solve their own problems. You actually started listening to them. That's a big change from before, when addiction is really a negative connotation in terms of a disease state. Like, you're just making bad decisions. You're not capable of making those changes. I'm going to have to fix it for you, type of thing. So it was very important to actually listen to the patient. The patient did realize the consequences when they started drinking too much or using too much drugs, and would have problems in their family life or in their work life and so forth. And so I think that's where it started, that you had to listen to the patient. With Bruce Berger and William Valome, what they really did as well is addressing what the struggle is for the patient in terms of their decision-making process. What are the reasons for or against actually making a change? And so they just took it the next step. I was able to attend a training probably 12 years ago with both of them, and we did a lot of practice scenarios, and you just got to go through the setting. They still offer that. We've got it referenced later on. Excellent training to get you in that zone.
I did their training virtually, which is something that would be offered to you if that's something you wanted to do. And by the way, we don't make money off this training. We're not trainers other than presenting this. But they're still, Bruce Berger was at a conference I was at in March, the American Pharmacists Association conference, and he's still presenting on this stuff. So you can still interact with these gentlemen who have been developing this work over the course of decades. And the research that continues to come out on it is just more and more supportive of these strategies. So now let's get into the crux. We set the stage for why we're using it and in what situations we're using it and what the perceived benefit is. Let's talk some more about what it is and the strategies that are involved and the steps involved in a motivational interviewing encounter. So it is a patient-centered approach, and it optimizes the possibility that the patient will consider and hopefully implement good health behavior changes. It does require that we as the healthcare providers attempt in a caring and non-threatening, non-judgmental way to understand and explore how our patients make sense of their illnesses and their health. It views the patient as a collaborative partner with expertise every bit as valuable of your own. I'm an expert in the medicine, you're an expert in you. We need to have a harmony between these two things for change to happen. As healthcare providers, our job is to act as a caring resource, to be an assistant to our patients in making better decisions about their health. We're not trying to make their decisions for them or live their lives for them. Ultimately, it's not us, but our patients who decide what they do and why. So we've alluded to this. We don't lose too much more time in this space, but this just is, again, a genuine recognition of the value of the patient's understanding of who they are, what their value systems are, why they do the things they do, what their understanding of their world is. before we get into additional strategies of motivational interviewing and steps, we must talk for just a moment about the spirit of MI. So when you do motivational interviewing, it is important that you embody a disposition, that you come at it with a genuine attitude of recognition and appreciation of your patient's expertise. It has to be genuinely patient-centered. You have to be genuinely curious about what's important to them and genuinely interested in helping them live their definition of their best life. If you try to use some of the strategies we teach you here today without the spirit of MI, without embodying that attitude and that perspective genuinely, it will be perceived by your patient and experienced as a form of manipulation. They will read that you're just trying to inflict your agenda and your goals on them, and that will cause relational resistance. So up front, before you do any of the other strategies, you have to believe in it, and you have to want to do it, and you have to value the patient for their own expertise and input.
I think that starts when you first meet the patient and what your body language is. Yeah. Just coming into a room, introducing yourself. If I'm going in to see a patient, for instance, I introduce myself and confirm the patient, and then I'm saying, what can we do for you? What are your concerns today? What would you like to get done? What are your goals? If you start with that, then you know where to go. And I think that just comes in with that whole spirit. I'm not coming in with my agenda. Of course, I've worked up the patient. I have my check boxes. I'm like, oh man, look at their kidneys. Look at this. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. You know, in my mind, I'm still working up the patient, but I start by go in and I'm going to address what is important to them. If they tell me, hey, I want to be around for my grandkids, that is powerful. Then I know that they don't want to have a heart attack. They don't want to have a stroke. They don't want to go on dialysis. Any of the things that I kind of had in my agenda that are in alignment with that is now fair game. So then I can feel comfortable knowing that I can talk about those things.
Yeah, getting my A1C number down, that's important to us, right, as providers. But what does that mean to a patient? It's just a number. But losing my leg because of an infection, and now I can't run around with my grandkids, or it's harder to travel if that's important to me, that does mean something to them. So we need to align our goals with what their goals are. That requires uncovering what their goals are. So some assumptions of motivational interviewing. We've kind of laid the groundwork for this here, but it's that we're going to incorporate them. We're going to fill in gaps of their understanding, and we're going to provide information in a way that's not threatening, so that they're in a situation where they're most likely to actually hear us and to see us as being helpers and not inflicting our belief systems on them.
And also, I mean, essentially, you have to build that rapport with the patient before they'll actually listen to you. You also have to realize that they may trust someone else that might be sharing information in a particular way. I call it the barbershop effect, where, you know, the barber's well known, he's heard everything, he knows what to do. I'm going to listen to him, and instead of listening to my provider. I had a patient the other day tell me that there was an older gentleman in his neighborhood that he really respects who said that metformin was bad for him. And so guess what? He stopped taking it. And so, you know, it also deals with who they also might be listening to, and also making sure that you're in the same alignment with your providers, because I don't want to cause space loss with any of the providers that I work with. So I make sure that we're on the same page with that too.
Yeah, and am I going to convince you that I care more about you than your spouse who's married to you, that's raising children with you, who's well-meaning and researching stuff and finding maybe some information and not knowing how to navigate that effectively? No, right? And so we need to recognize who the players in our patients' lives are and factor that in to how we're making our recommendations. So these are, if you're saying these things in your head or out loud, it's a sign that you are not embodying that spirit of MI. And so I just need to tell my patients what to do. It's my job to educate my patients, to empower them, right? to motivate them. So this is a misconception. Motivational interviewing is not about motivating your patients. We don't have that ability. Our patients have their own intrinsic motivations. Motivational interviewing is about uncovering what those motivations our patients do have are. Being around my grandkids, being able to travel, so on and so forth, so that when we make recommendations, we can speak to the things that motivate them as a reason to make those changes. There's more stuff listed here. These are patient-centered approaches in alignment with the spirit of MI. So I'm going to personalize care. I'm not going to just do in you the exact same thing I would do in anybody else and just recommend it the exact same way. I'm going to tailor the sense making that I offer based on what your sense making is. And I'm going to align my recommendations with your goals and what's important to you. So here are the next steps we're going to go through. This is like a step 1, step 2, step 3, if you want to think about it in terms of MI. And so the first thing is to come in with that right attitude, that spirit of MI. The next step is to build that relationship with the patient. And too many providers skip that step. They get right to the science and they want to start doing the sense making. But we have to earn the right to provide information to our patients in a way that they're actually listening and hearing it the way we would like them to. And that starts with relationship and finding out more about our patient. So that when we give information, it's the right information and it's in the way that's right for them to hear. We're going to reframe patient understanding and issues. Before we do teaching, we're going to ask permission. We're respecting autonomy, right? So we don't lose face. And even if a person isn't inclined already to do what you're recommending, it's rare that a patient will say, if you say, hey, would you mind if I share some information, you tell me what you think? It's rare that a patient's going to refuse that opportunity. They might be looking forward to telling you why they're still not going to do it, but they'll hear you out and they're less threatened when you ask for that permission. Then we provide the information specific to them and their situation. Then we ask them what they think. They get to absorb that information, to digest it, to ask questions, to say what they think, and we can see how it's changed or not their intentions with regard to their health behaviors. And then you summarize for your patient what has been decided by them and what the next steps are in their healthcare. So why do we do MI? There was a question about this in the pre-diags. Ultimately, there's so many studies, hundreds of studies in this over multiple decades now. And consistently what we find is when motivational interviewing is done, our patients are happier, you as a provider are happier, the patients are healthier, and they are more adherent to the medications that are helping keep them healthy. So that's the ultimate why. Let's talk more about steps involved in developing that rapport so we don't end up in relational resistance. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do is when you ask your patient questions about where they're at, when I ask that question, what do you want to get done today? What are your main goals? It's an open-ended question. And so when they share that information, or if it was a concern that they have, then I'm able to reflect back to them to tell them that I'm actually hearing what they're telling me. That is a step that if you just get good at that, you've got like 50% of this done. Mm-hmm. So for people that kind of struggle, they're more of the fix-it person, if you just practice reflective listening, you're going to move in the right direction. Patients are going to say, yes, you heard me. That's exactly what I'm interested in. The next level above that to create rapport with your patients is actually developing an empathetic response. And empathy is really being in touch with that patient's feelings and adding that. You're not just reflecting the words that they're saying, but you also have that sense of a feeling. So when I have an empathetic response, it's kind of a question. So
how are you? I don't understand what are these three agreements. Just explain to me. I will try to help you out. I might print the agreement, sign it, and get it stamped. Maybe.
That was not a question for us. I thought it was for me. Apologies.
Apologies, I had to mute Dr. Bush.
All right, good. But essentially, before you can share information, they have to trust you. So this is about empathy, being explicit. Like you're feeling very frustrated because you don't feel like the doctor took you seriously, when you told them how much your back hurts. So that's going over the reasons, the feelings, the content of what that patient is telling me. This is an area where I find students do it quite a bit, where they try to make it about themselves. So they're trying to be buddy and saying, oh yeah, that's what I've done that before. I struggle with that. That actually is not helpful, and it can actually backfire, because if you say something like, oh yeah, I know what it's like to you know, I quit smoking or whatever. Well, then that's about you and how you went through that process. Patients can be like, hey, look, we're not talking about you, we're talking about me. And so that can be something to try to avoid, that you might be tempted to do. These are some areas, like any healthcare provider, where you will definitely step on some toes. And we've kind of alluded to a lot of these already. For the sake of time, we'll just keep going on. But essentially, you're just coming in and you're going to bulldoze your way right through that clinic visit. I think that if you had a patient and you're talking to them, if someone was actually watching you, like we do OSCEs where we evaluate students interacting with patients, and if I'm going, oh, that student is just going through the steps, or they're just giving that patient the standard lecture, I can kind of evaluate. Well, patients are also assessing you too. And they're like, if you really care about them and you, in the way that you communicate, relays that, they're going to be like, this provider cares about me. And guess what? Your versus your no-show rates go way up. They're coming back to see you. They'll come in and say, Dr. Sterrett, can I just come and see you? It's like, no, we're a whole team here, but when I ask them about it, it's like, we really appreciate that you're listening to us. Nobody has ever asked me what I think. And so those are very powerful moments when you're communicating with your patients, when they show those things.
So we've built the relationship so our patient sees us as somebody who has heard what's important to them, who's gotten to understand them as a person and what their struggles are. And we have respected their autonomy and their competence by including them. Now we want to be able to present information, find out more about what their situation is, and provide information that they need to hear so that they can understand and make good health decisions. So the first strategy in that context we're going to teach you is called reframing a patient's issues. So this is to clarify an issue that they're having. I'm hearing that this is a concern for you, right? And so I don't understand. So, the patient says, I don't know why I need to take my statin. I feel fine, right? And so the way you're reframing the issue is, you're wondering why you would need to take a cholesterol medication when you feel fine, and you'd rather wait until you don't feel fine to take something to treat a problem that you're not experiencing. And the patient would say, yes, exactly, right? And so this can actually be an opportunity in reframing patient issues for what we call a conditional commitment. So in the case of reframing the issue is, oh, you want to get your blood pressure under control, but you're a truck driver and you're afraid if you take this blood pressure medication, it's going to make you dizzy. It sounds like if we could give you a medication that would lower your blood pressure and prevent your risk for heart attack and stroke, but wouldn't add risks in terms of your job and livelihood as a truck driver, that you'd be very willing to give something like that a try, right? And the patient says,
absolutely.
Yes, right. That's a conditional commitment. They've kind of told us they would. And so now I can provide information either on the initial drug and how it's not as risky as they were concerned about, or I know that I need to, if it was an actual risk for them, something that would be sedating, not appropriate for somebody who's a truck driver, I know I can switch to the next best drug for that person because they can't take something that's going to make them risky behind the wheel, right? And I know they're predisposed to accept it because they already told me they would, right? So go ahead, please.
Yeah, these are just additional things that you might hear them say, hey, I've tried that before. How can you switch that around to be more positive in nature? So what did you do and what actually worked when you were trying to lose that weight? And you said you lost some weight, but then you gained it back. What did you do to actually get that weight off? Then get them thinking about the positive types of things. And as you go through and you hit these different barriers, you can kind of reframe things in a more positive light and even get them to look over the fence. And when I say look over the fence, it's more of like, what could be a potential, right? So sometimes I love being in a roller chair when I'm in the clinic because I can roll right over to them. I can share information, maybe their labs or some things. I'll draw a picture for them, or I'll even roll side by side and I'll say something like, Anthony, what do you think a perfect picture would look like 6 months from now? And then I get them to actually share with me what the solution is. And so it's a way for them to take a positive attitude, to see what could be possible, and they're more likely to actually take steps in that direction.
So when they picture that more perfect future, it starts, they're actually arguing themselves into making the changes that would make that a reality. Man, I'd really like to be able to play ball with my son for more than 5 minutes and not be winded. I would really like to not have to stand outside in the cold and in the rain smoking because my wife doesn't let me do it in the house, you know, stuff like that, you know, so look over the fence.
Yep.
So next we provide information. We've learned, we've built a relationship with our patients. We've learned what their sense making is and what their concerns are that need to be addressed and what the gaps in their understanding are. So we're going to provide information. But we don't just come in and force that information on them. The first step in providing information, even if we've built that rapport, we want to keep that relationship. And so we're going to ask permission. We're respecting their autonomy and say, I'm hearing this from you. You're upset about this. I'm hearing you have concerns about this, and you're wondering about this. Would you mind if I share you some information and then you tell me what you think about it, right?
I think that's an important step too. Not only asking permission, but letting them know that we want to hear feedback from them on what they think. So a lot of times if I'm suggesting a medication for them, is I'll say to them, I'm going to share the pros and cons from my standpoint on the medicine, why I think it might help you reach your goals, but I want you to tell me what you think and get them to buy in. If they say no way, then we'll go to plan B. Or I'll ask them specifically why. What are they scared of? What are they afraid of? I'll get them talking more and more and more about what's going to motivate them to get to that point.
So we're going to avoid all those things we've already alluded to. You need to do this. You have to understand this is not a time to tell the patient what they have to do. It's a time to say, here's what I'm worried about and my concerns are if we keep doing things the way they've been done. And here's my recommendations on how it might be better for you. And then I'd like to hear what you think about that. Yeah.
Oftentimes we have numbers in our head, we have guidelines and we have goals, and we say to them, your goal A1C needs to be less than 7%. We don't tell them why, right? If we said, if you lower your A1C to less than 7%, there is a 30 to 50% chance of not having complications like eye disease, kidney disease, and nerve damage. If we tell them that, then they have the reasons why. I'm not just setting a goal for them. I'm letting them know the data says this is what the consequence of having that as a goal. What do you think? You go from there.
Yeah. Use analogies that relate to things your patient has expressed interest in. If they play soccer or football, as you would call it, you know, maybe I'm talking about that sinus node as the referee on a soccer pitch, kind of, you know, orchestrating who's in play when, and so on and so forth, and whether or not they're good at their job, you know. I would not use that on my son. He plays different sports and he wouldn't get the reference, right? So okay, so we've provided the information. Now we need to respond to our patients' learning that from the teaching we provided and see what their decision making is, which might involve some more information. There might be some more back and forth in this process if they still need things clarified. So things your patient might say is, wow, I didn't realize that. It sounds like I need to do something differently, or I didn't know that before. They might say, okay, I need more time to digest this. That was a lot of information. Thank you. You're an advocate. I'm going to absorb it. Maybe we'll talk about it at a future visit. don't lose that chance to talk about it at the future visit because you want to fight a fight now with somebody who's not ready quite yet to commit to something they're not ready to commit to.
Yeah, you can almost consider it like a pre-sale in your mind. Like you're setting them up to buy, but maybe not today, but maybe later. And they'll come back in, and oftentimes, if you did a really good job of sharing information, but they weren't ready for it right then, they come back in and guess what they ask for? Hey, we were talking about, smoking cessation last time. I'm ready. Now I just need to know the tools. What do I need to do? Do I need nicotine replacement? Or you talked about varenicline? I'm interested in that. I think I'd like to go with that.
Yeah, and in the moment too, while smoking might be the best thing your patient could do to say lower their risk for a heart attack or stroke, we don't want to lose the opportunity to get them started on a statin or get their blood pressure under control, so on and so forth. And if I refuse as the provider to move on from the smoking, I might cause that relational resistance, and now they're not going to do the other stuff that could have some benefit in lowering that risk. So yeah, we want to roll with resistance in that case. We've summed up what's on this slide already, but we're trying to prevent that loss of face. We're keeping our patients a part of it. They get decision making. We're asking them what they think because we respect their competent mind. We're using open-ended questions to find out stuff about them and what they're thinking and why. We're reflecting their thoughts back to them so that we're showing we understand. And we're using language that shows we also understand their feelings about what they're frustrated about or scared about or happy about and want to keep, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think resistance can be information. It might be the patient telling you, I don't like the way you're talking to me. And so when I get resistance, I kind of assess myself. How did I share that information? How did I respond to that? Did I kind of step on some toes? Maybe I need to apologize. We make mistakes. So maybe I need to back up a little bit and then just really respect that and share with them. Sounds like you're not ready to quit smoking at this time. You're not even ready to talk about it. Hey, just let me know in the future if you ever do. I'm good. Right. So then I'm not going to continue with the harm of developing that relational resistance because that's really hard to overcome.
It really is. It takes time to build a helpful relationship. It takes one bad statement or even not verbal, something you do physically that could cause harm to that relationship. Really hard to overcome that. One thing we want to do is support self-efficacy of our patients. So where our patients are doing good things, we want to acknowledge that. So even if it's something, it's like they come in and they're like, hey, I was researching on the internet and I found such and such and such and such. What they're doing is showing intellectual curiosity about their health. They're showing a willingness to seek out and use new information. We want to support that and acknowledge that. Even if the information they found isn't the most robust or most helpful, that's good behavior that we can leverage and we can show them respect for that. They might feel like a failure. They tried to quit smoking before, but they're a smoker today. For them, that's a perceived failure. We talked about reframing as a partial success, It's like, hey, you're putting in the effort, you're doing the reps, and the more you do that, the more likely you are to succeed. So these are ways of helping them to feel empowered. We don't have the ability to empower them, but to help them to recognize the power within themselves. We want to support, recognize explicitly the things they're doing that are good and helpful for them. Care to allude to developing discrepancy?
Yeah, there's times when a patient's behavior is out of alignment with their goals. And I said that very specifically, very explicitly, because it's not my goals, it's their goals. When that happens, then we can actually create some dissonance, that uncomfortable sensation or sound or discrepancy between those two things. And if we're doing it in that fashion and we built that rapport with them, then it gets the patient actually look at themselves and say, this is where I'm at. You're right. I'm not doing these things. Maybe I should. And so we can still share our expertise. Just realize that that's why the very first thing I say is, what are your goals? Because if their behavior is out of alignment with their goals, I can say, hey, I'm concerned about that because this is what I'm seeing. This is where you're at. It doesn't line up.
Doesn't look like you're driving to the destination you said that you want to get to, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked at length about some of the stuff, the things we want to avoid. We want to maintain that spirit of MI, maintain the respect for a patient. Don't use, we're not trying to manipulate them. You don't want to turn these steps into that. That'll backfire on you. Sometimes you'll find that a patient is just dead set on doing something you want them to not do, or refusing to do something you really do want them to do, and you don't know what else to say. Maybe you found yourself already on accident. You've ended up in that yeah, but situation. Yeah, but I really don't want to take that medicine. Yeah, but if you don't, you might have a stroke. Yeah, but I'm afraid it's going to make me dizzy, right? And you found yourself unintentionally in that combative state, right? The insurance card for you, the thing that gets you out of that situation, that realigns you as an advocate for the patient. If you don't know what else to say and you're at a loss for words, start your next sentence with, I'm concerned. Even if your patient doesn't agree with you, even if they're not going to take the advice you're giving, it is really difficult to have an adversarial relationship of conflict with somebody who is just showing genuine concern. So you come from that place of caring. I'm concerned about this. Here's what worries me. And that kind of can get you back on track.
Yeah, and being very explicit about what you're concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned, let's say you have a COPD patient that continues to smoke who ended up in the hospital, and they come back and see you in the ambulatory care setting, and they're still smoking, and they tell you their goal is not to end up back in the hospital. And you've tried to provide some information to them, you've tried to find out where they're at, and you realize that they're out of alignment. And you can say, I'm concerned that your goal is to stay out of the hospital, but you continue to smoke, which is continuing to exacerbate your potential chances of your lungs leading you back into the hospital again.
Excuse me.
Then just be quiet for a second and let them digest it and share that information with you.
Yeah, so you've earned the right to talk about that because you've made them a part of the process, right? And so because we're up against time here, we'll kind of wind up by just reiterating the two main things you want to keep in mind. I'm building trust with my patients, and I'm leveraging that trust to provide sense making. You can build that healthy cheerleader relationship and forget to give them accurate information. Don't do that. Make sure they get the information, but don't force that information without building that relationship and that trust. That is so important. Reasons against doing motivational interviewing that most people give is it takes time to do. But the truth is, it takes time to treat patients, especially patients who are not making good health decisions and continuously make bad health decisions. So you're going to pay that time now or later. It's ultimately more time saving to engage in motivational interviewing. Plus, it increases better outcomes, satisfaction for you, for them, et cetera. There are additional training opportunities we alluded to. The books that Dr. Starrett held up, you have these slides available to you. They do online virtual trainings if you want to get more in this. We've summarized it, and we are up against time, but we do have the post-test questions and the answers here in the slides. And I see that there's a hand up.
That was just Prof. Ibrahim asking to wrap up, please.
Sure. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So our post-test questions are here. I recognize we're up against time, but you could probably tell by the way I read the answers. Yeah.
So let us just run the polls quickly one more time to give us a couple of seconds, and then I will put the results for you. While we're waiting and playing those polls, I would like to invite Dr. Paul back, and perhaps we can start the discussion. And at the end of the discussion, we can go over the polls.
Well, an excellent presentation. And I think the idea, when I think of myself, I take several medications, and sometimes I try to convince my physician which way is best for me. And, I'm a pharmacist. So all of this is very, very important and real world. I know we've got several thousand on the call today on the webinar, and I don't know how many are pharmacists or how many are physicians, but it's been an outstanding presentation, James and Anthony. So I want to thank you.
Thank you very much. We are accessible should people have follow-up questions after today's presentation. Happy to spend more time. Sorry, that was a lot to do in a short amount of time.
Maybe you could scroll through, James and Anthony, just scroll through your
Sorry.
slides so that they can see the correct answers.
Sure.
And I also shared my email. So if people do have more questions about things or would like to share some challenges of what they've done or how they've changed and been effective in motivational interviewing, I would love to hear some of those scenarios. I think we can all think about either family members that we have used. I can think of numerous times that I've used motivational interviewing with my kids instead of just telling them what to do. And I think it ended up with a better result because of it, because they learned to make decisions for themselves. And they learned that I was a good listener. Yeah.
Okay, we've just got the third poll up. One more after this, and then we'll put them together and share the screen. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to pull the screen up here, and then we'll quickly go over the results with you. Just give us a second. All right. So we have here the first poll. To your left, you will see the poll questions at the beginning of the lecture, and to your right, you will see them at the end of the lecture.
Well done, team. Improvement in each of the
Great.
questions. Thank you.
Let me know when you'd like to go to the next poll, please.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Right, same scenario, poll 2.
Wow. Thank you.
Would you like to comment?
Oh, yes, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I think one of the answers might have been cut off there.
It looks like people are still willing to threaten the patients by saying things like your son's life or your son's scholarship, what's more important? I mean, that's in a way that's a threat. And
So I believe E in this situation was something to the effect of, it sounds like you're concerned about your health, your son's health, and want to do anything to keep them healthy, but you don't want to jeopardize his future as an athlete.
yeah, that was the correct.
That's that reflective piece. Yeah.
And
then poll number 3.
And this one is, envisioning what it might look like in a better tomorrow. So A would actually be a looking over the fence technique.
Yeah, all these were things you might find yourself saying to a patient, and they're all in alignment with motivational interviewing. But the strategy of look over the fence, it's that, hey, if I waved my magic wand and you woke up and you just didn't want to smoke anymore, you didn't have a desire to do it, how would your life be different? And the patient says, well, I'd have more money to spend because I spend a lot of money on that habit now. I'd be breathing better, wouldn't maybe need my maintenance inhalers frequently. I could run around with my grandkids more, etc. That's the look over the fence.
And then the final poll.
And yeah, we said this a number of times, and you all picked up on it along the way. It makes you and your patients happier, makes them healthier, and they take their medication. Well done,
Great.
those.
Okay, well, Dr. Paul, would you like to conclude that session before we move back to our conference moderator, Dr. Ibrahim?
Well, no, I don't want to. There's not much more to say. They did an outstanding job. The audience was engaged, and we're very thankful for participating in the symposium today. And turn it back to Professor Alsara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prince.
Thank you, Dr. Bush, for handling the second part of the session. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all our distinguished speaker, Dr. Majid Al-Hudhud, Professor Naveen Zaki, Dr. John Hertig, our moderator, Paul Bush, Dr. James Sterlt, and Dr. Anthony Declue for their exceptional contribution today. This will conclude day one of the Whole Body Wellness Symposium. We hope these sessions have sparked valuable dialogue and inspired the new approaches to enhancing pharmacy services aligned with both local needs and a global best practice. On behalf of Procter & Gamble Health International, I would like to offer my regard to all the renowned speakers again, guests, colleagues who have joined us in this exciting event. Special thanks to the Center of Advanced Professional Practices, CAP, for their professional handling of this event. We look forward to welcoming you again tomorrow for another day. Thank you all for your engagement and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Ibrahim. It's a pleasure to always have you with us. Thank you for keeping our speakers in check and for guiding us through all of the Q&As. Thank you also to Dr. Paul for stepping in to moderate that last session. It was very interesting and super interactive. So before we go, I'd like to give the word to Dr. Musa, Ahmed Musa, who is the man responsible for putting all this together. And we thank deeply to P&G Health for this program. So Dr. Ahmed, would you like to say a couple of words, please?
Actually, thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all the attendees today who have paid attention and showed interactivity that was really expanding and exceeding our expectations. I would like to extend my thanks to Professor Al-Sarra for moderating, as usual, the best moderator we've dreaming to have always. And all of our speakers today, Professor Al-Hudhud, Professor Zaki, Dr. Hertig, Dr. James, and Dr. Declue, and of course, Dr. Bush. Thank you very much. I am really deeply sincere, thankful to having you all today. Looking forward for your attendance tomorrow. We have our day 2 is tomorrow morning. So please stay tuned for tomorrow as well. We have a very rich program. So stay tuned and see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're muted.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed, for your kind message. I would like to remind everybody that tomorrow we continue
I
once
would like to
again.
extend also my thanks to our partners in CAP. Actually, our partners CAP and CCM, they helped us so much today to pull all of this together. So without them, we couldn't do all of this. So thank you very, very much. And look forward for tomorrow, inshallah.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Musa. This is the program for tomorrow. We're back at 10 o'clock Saudi time, 11 o'clock UAE time with Dr. Ashraf Amir. We're going to talk diabetes to bariatric surgery. Then Dr. Ashraf Shaban, omega-3 fatty acids. With Dr. Hazem, we continue managing joint pain. And our dearest moderator is going to show us his presentation on the common cold management during Hajj pilgrimage. So please stay tuned. Come back tomorrow. It's the same link. You will receive a reminder an hour before. And to end the day, I'm going to answer the most frequently asked question, and that is about the CME and when do we get our certificate. This session is expected accreditation from the Saudi Commission of Health Specialists for 4 CE credits. It's also expecting a further CME accreditation from the Dubai Health Authorities. These will be sent to you by email after 30 days because it is a long session. We have 8 hours of content. We need to give you and your colleagues enough time to either watch it live or on demand, and thus everything will be provided to you after 30 days by your registered email. That's it for today. Ladies and gentlemen, dear doctors, we'll welcome you back tomorrow, and we'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing with us a very knowledgeable day. And remember, the same link will become the on-demand recording after 30-40 minutes tonight. You can watch it already tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow again. Good night, everybody. Good night, Prof. Good night, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you.